Can you can you see my screen now?
No, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's come to. So today we are going to discuss this part. Okay, impact of COVID-19 on Indian economy. Last class re I think just the pururu end ହେଇଥିଲା. So today we are going to start from this part. Okay. Impact of COVID-19 on Indian economy. Then we will see what is its impact on Odisha economy also. So first, when you are introducing this topic, so and I also expect ki one topic, one question directly or indirectly will be from COVID-19. COVID-19 in itself, यार impact बहुत सारा जिनसे पचरा अब, okay. Society, economy, polity बहुत सारा जिनसे directly or indirectly पचरा. So suppose Indian economy विषय पचरा है, how you can introduce this? You can say that COVID-19 was a black swan event or a Six Sigma event. So what is the meaning of black swan event? Black swan event. This comes from Nassim Nicholas Taleb's book. Okay. In one of his book called Black Swan, he explained that these are events which are very rare, but they are also very unpredictable. So it is difficult to prepare for them. Difficult to prepare for them. But these also have a huge impact on society, economy, everything. So this is known as a black swan event. Another term is usually used is it is called Six Sigma event. What is the meaning of Six Sigma? That if you have seen this probability curve, in nature most of the phenomenon, you take for example height or intelligence, whatever kind of example you take, okay, you will see that these attributes or different phenomena, natural phenomena also follows this kind of curve called bell curve. Okay. In the bell curve, what will happen is that most people will fall in the middle. Okay. And as you go towards the extreme, less and less number of people will be found on the extreme. Now, statistically, this is being divided into this part is known as a mean and this part is known as deviation. So we try to calculate that from deviation from the mean, how much of the people, this is the percentage or people are falling within in what range. So middle range re maximum loko thanti, this is 1 sigma, this is 2 sigma, this is 3 sigma, so on and so forth. ସେମିତି ଏଇଟା ହେଲା ମାଇନସ୍ ସିଗ୍ମା ମାଇନସ୍ ଟୁ ସିଗ୍ମା ଏମିତିଆ ହୁଏ। ତାର ମାନେ ହଉଛି କି ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ କୋଉ ବି ପପୁଲେସନକୁ ଦେଖିବା, ଯେତେ ଆମେ ଏକ୍ସଟ୍ରିମକୁ ଯିବା ସେତେ କମ ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ଆମେ ପାଇବା। ତ ସେଇଭଳିଆ 3 sigma 4 sigma 5 sigma ହେଇକି 6 sigma. So 6 sigma means something which is very extreme, very extreme, and usually the frequency or number is very less. Okay. So in that sense, it is called as Six Sigma event, means an event which is very extreme or very rare. So you can introduce with either of these two terms. Now, এটা বুঝিହେଲା କି ବୁଝିହେଲାନି? If you still have doubt, please just माने Google की YouTube रे गोटे वीडियो माने चेक कर दो, Six Sigma event चेक करो कि what is the meaning of Six Sigma events, or you can also search for bell curve. Bell curve ର ମାନେ କଣ, କେମିତି ତାର distribution ହୁଏ, you can check. Okay, we are not going to go into detail. This is only for your introduction part.
सर इंक कलर टिके चेंज कर दियंतु।
Oh, sorry, starting required, sorry. Okay, so let us start with what was the impact. Let me see what was the impact of COVID-19. If you see the GDP growth rate of India, now you see what are the changes, how the economy has been impacted. बर्तमान देखो 2019-20 रे, which is fiscal year 2020, our growth rate was 4%. Still it is low from the time of 2000 to 2008. If you remember, economy was growing somewhere around 7 to 8%. In that range it was growing. So from that range we have, after the global financial crisis asla जानथियो 2008 रे, तापरे धीरे धीरे हमरो decrease हवा को लागिला growth rate. So even before COVID, actually India was seeing economic slowdown. Okay, means growing economy was growing, but economy was growing at a slower rate or lower rate. And यार region भी अलगा हमें पूर्व थर कथा है, what is the different regions. You go through the previous year, previous class notes, we had discussed that why there was a slowdown before it. Now what happened after this? Now here 2020 actually COVID-19 କାହିଁକି ନା ହେଇଛି because 2019 end ବେଳକୁ ସେ first time ପାଇଁ ଜଣା ପଡିଲା but यार impact actually ହେଲା 2020 ରେ ଆସିଲା। So 2020 ରେ ଆସିଲା ମାନେ so the next year is 2020-21 means this year fiscal year 2021. So 2021 is the first year टारे there was a huge shutdown and shutdown ପରେ lockdown ହେଲା। shutdown means completely ସବୁ ଜିନିଷ ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇଗଲା କିଛି ଦିନ ପାଇଁ ତାପରେ ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଦେଖିଲୁ କି ନାଇଁ ଆମେ ଏଟାକୁ completely ବନ୍ଦ କରିକି check କରିପାରିବାନି then we called it a lockdown. lockdown in the sense କି କିଛି କିଛି ଜିନିଷ ବନ୍ଦ ହେଲା କିଛି essential services ଖୋଲା ହେଲା। तो या द्वारा कौन हला first and foremost impact was that economy shrank by huge amount -5.8%. तो economy का जो एतिकी हमरो reduce हला by the way these are all government data okay amaro actually if you I personally believe that this number should also be higher much higher okay. So it is likely that government has माने एटा टी पॉजिटिव लाइट रे सामने शो करछन्ते otherwise if you see most economic organizations they have given contraction level of contraction Indian economy ପାଇଁ ଦେଇଛି -7% around but एटा latest 2023 रो सब revised ହେଇକି तार final data एटा कुआ होची -5.8% which is also very doubtful okay but anyway it's a government data so you can write it no issues. Similarly then what happened 2020-21 year पर ठारू next year बेलକୁ धीरे धीरे ठीक है इकोनॉमी तो खुलिया को लागिला लोक माने काम काम करिया स्टार्ट कले then economy started growing. So if you see the next year fiscal year 2022 you see a huge jump 9.1%, but this is not actually because of the actual growth of economy, rather this is because of the base effect. एटा भी हमें प्रीवियस क्लास रे डिस्कस करथिले बेस इफेक्ट होची जेतले इकोनॉमी ता पूर्व वर्ष कंट्राक्शन हेतिला तो सेतबेले अल्प इंक्रीज कले भी एई लेवल टा माने प्रीवियस ईयर रो लेवल टारू हमकु अधिका लागि so actually real growth का is very less but जेहेतु previous year रे एटा actually decrease करी हितला economy सेति पई हमकु next year तारो growth rate टा बेसी high बोली जଣା पड़ियो so this effect is known as base effect. So due to base effect the next year's growth rate was 9.1%. Now you see the fiscal year next year fiscal year 23 रे कौन हला now actually this one we can accept कि because this one is somewhere around which is something that we should aspire to 7 to 8% a range we can with good effort we can reach this. So here it is we are calling it actual economic recovery. आमे कोविड रो different type रो recovery भी देखिया कि what is the meaning of different types of recovery, but in general we are saying that now India has recovered from COVID-19 okay overall we have recovered. If you want you can also introduce with this data that GDP growth rate for Q1 means first quarter of fiscal year 2021 it showed a contraction of 24% means almost 1/4 ଆମର economy contract ହେଇଥିଲା କେବଳ ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ quarter ରେ but finally କଣ ହେଲା କି ଗୋଟେ fiscal year ତ ଗୋଟେ quarter ନା ଚାରଟା quarter ମିଶିକି that was like -5 to 6% okay in that range that was the final contraction but ତା ଭିତରେ first quarter ରେ huge contraction ହେଇଥିଲା because that was the time when we were having lockdown shutdown ଏ ସବୁ ଦୁନିଆ ଜିନିଷ ଚାଲିଥିଲା recovery ହେଇ ନଥିଲା. So this is going to be your introduction. Now let us see sector wise impact कौन ହେଇଥିଲା COVID-19 okay whenever you are writing answer remember one thing economy रो by the way एटा हम डिस्कस कर चुके नहीं economy रो answer you must have known कि economy answer गुडा usually हम केमती divide करिया structuring केमती करिया very simple thing sectoral way रे you can first and foremost you can divide this agriculture industries services apart from that you can also divide apart from that you can also write about poverty you can write about unemployment you can write about savings rate you can write about what else you can write so in other topics you can write about fiscal policy measures you can write about monetary policy measures these are the different ways you can structure your answer but in general this part should always be there okay so let us see what was the sector wise impact of COVID-19 on Indian economy. So all of these are fiscal year 2021 because 2020 रे जेतो हला तार पर नेक्स्ट ईयर एंड बेलू जो इकोनॉमिक सर्वे आसे से इकोनॉमिक सर्वे रो डाटा so let us see what was the impact. Primary sector, notice this primary sector or agriculture this grew by 3.5% sorry 3.4% and if you notice this is the only positive growth rate माने तीनटा को sector भितरु only agriculture was the only sector which was growing in the COVID year also. So this is called as lone bright spot of Indian economy. Because अन्य सब sector गुड़ा देखियो सब decrease ହେଇଛି -9.6%, so minus रे ଅଛି. Tertiary sector, okay, I forgot to mention minus. Okay, let me check and so all of these are minus रे अछि, but this is the only sector. I think this one is -7 or -8, somewhere around there. This is the only sector which was growing. Now, what was the reason? Can anyone tell me ki agriculture? Why was agriculture the only sector which was growing? Can anyone tell me? Or at least still growing? Okay. Previous year level ta to टिके less thila, but it was at least it was not contracting. Logically think logically. कौन reason है करे?
Sir,
बहुत
agriculture
simple.
is sir,
Migration.
Yes, yes.
agriculture is less dependent on logistics. ଆଉ sir ବନ୍ଦ ବି ହେଇନଥିଲା agriculture ଏତେ.
अरे बंद है ही पारिबनी. आमे आउ सब बंद कर दम, खाया कौन बंद कर दो कि? तो केबे agriculture मन रो केबे बंद ही पारि. And the second reason is that because agriculture is such a huge, what can you say? You see the level of employment in India to agriculture, it is more than 50%. So can we shut down agriculture sector at? You cannot shut down. You can regulate, it can reduce a bit. I mean, growth rate can reduce, but agriculture sector cannot reduce. Now, this is not the time of 1950s or 1947 ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେତେବେଳେ ଆମର ଚलो agricultural sector ବହୁତ down ଥିଲା, self sufficiency ନଥିଲା, ସେ ସବୁ issue ଥିଲା, ଆମେ planning ରେ ବି ଦେଖିବା. But ଏବେ ତ demand ଅଛି ନା, demand ଅଛି, huge ଲୋକଙ୍କର demand ଅଛି, at least ଆମେ domestically ତ consume କରିବା. So we have to, farming has to go on. That is the main reason. Okay. And other smaller, I mean relatively minor reasons you can find out. For example, आमे देखिया the industry रो problem कौन हला, services sector रो problem कौन हला, ए सब sector रो problem agriculture नथिला. For example, if you think about services sector, many sectors within the services sector were what we call as contact sensitive sectors. Contact sensitive sectors. For example, you are going to tourism, कोटे कोटे बुलिया को जाओ, बुलिया गले तो निश्चय contact रे आसियो, hotels. Okay. So these sector यार problem कौन है ना, कोविड में directly इनको सीधा बंद कर दिया, complete shutdown. So now this sector actually faced the highest impact. But is this the case of agriculture? Agriculture contact sensitive कौन से farmer ही जहाँ contact करियो ना. So is the farmer going around and talking to people or माने किसी समझी तो करूँ ना. So agriculture is not the contact sensitive sector. So my point is अन्य sector जहाँ issue थिला, agriculture से सब issue not था. So due to all of these reasons, agriculture continued to grow. The main reason होची कि agriculture का हम बंद ही कर पाइले. But if you see, the greatest impact actually fell on the secondary sector. Secondary sector ऊपर greatest impact काहे ही पड़ेला? See, all of these even issues they can ask you. What is the main reason for economic recession in India due to COVID-19? Okay, so they can ask. Although I doubt whether they will ask you sector wise कि लेखो तुम्हें industrial sector रो कौन issue सेमतिया पचारियो. Overall they can ask. The first and foremost was because of shutdown and lockdown. This is the main reason. Now this led to attrition of migrant workers. Migrant माने layoffs रे भी तुम यदि देखियो specifically migrant workers who are also mostly part of the informal sector of the economy or unorganized sector. Now they are getting the major impact of the COVID-19 induced shutdown and lockdown. So when they were leaving, that led to, and a migrant worker they are the backbone of the industries. Okay. Till now Indian industry is not developed enough कि आमे organized sector रो worker मानकर number एते बेसी नहीं, ताटो बेसी number अछि informal और unorganized sector workers मानकर. So सेमान गतले job रू बाहर कर दिया गला, that led to directly shutdown of factories. And finally, if you see uncertainty, uncertainty means future कौन होगा हमको जाना नहीं, business sentiment down here. This term is very important. This concept is very important in industrial sector as well as to some extent services sector also. Business sentiment माने business जो माने managers, जो माने owners, if they feel that the country is not going to grow, then they will not invest. Economy is not going to grow, they will not invest. So investment नहीं माने production भी धीरे धीरे कमी जीव. So business sentiment down है वाला. if you want to further know about this, there is a term called Purchasing Managers Index, PMI. It is so prelims, I think you might have read about this, right? Purchasing Managers Index. Please check this. Sorry, index na indicator? Index, I think. Purchasing Managers Index जो 50% ऊपर को हेले माने सेटा ग्रो करूची, 50% तळो को हेले रिड्यूस होउची. Anyway, these are all prelims related topics, but the conceptual part is that secondary sector was the माने greatest hit हेतला secondary sector ऊपर. Now tertiary sector, if you come to services sector ର problem कौन है ना? Initially there was layoff, so industrial sector ଯେମିତି होतला, services sector ବି ସେମିତି ହେଲା, but later on because services sector कौन ସେମାନେ work from home କରିପାରିବେ. देखो इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर रो वर्क फ्रॉम होम नहीं किछि, तुमे फैक्ट्री किछि काम करछो और किछि गोटा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट रे काम करछो, वर्क फ्रॉम होम केमति करियो? यू हैव टू गो टू द फैक्ट्री. सो फैक्ट्री बंद हे गेले, माने मैन्युफैक्चरिंग लाइन बंद हे गेले, बट तुमे टीसीएस इन्फोसिस कोठी काम करछो, यू कैन वर्क फ्रॉम होम आल्सो. So because of this facility, to some extent after the initial layoff, the services sector managed to somehow recover. माने एते भी खराब कंडीशन है नथला जते सेकेंडरी सेक्टर रहला. And but within this services sector, the most impact was felt by the contact sensitive sectors, which are hospitality sector, tourism, civil aviation. Very very important. If you see most of the airlines of India as well as across the world, most of them were facing huge losses. Okay. Because even government did not know कि कौन हबार अच्छे कौन नहीं, तो ସେମାନେ directly कौन कले एयर ट्रैवल बंद कर देले. ये सब जिनसे तुम्हें पढ़ी से टाइम रे एयर बबल सब स्टार्ट हला. माने सपोज गोटे कंट्री एठी अछि, इंडिया अछि, वी रियलाइज कि अन्य कंट्री रे बहुत कोविड केस बढ़ुची, बट बांग्लादेश सपोज एते सारा नाही, तो व्हाट विल डू कि आमे हमर गोटे एक्सक्लूसिव एयर ट्रैवल याको भीतर रखू. ओके, so these kind of things, in any case you will have less number of travelers now, also due to increased rules and regulation. किछि लोक डर कि जीवन कि यार एते के चेकिंग करियो, पीसीआर रिपोर्ट नै कि जीवो दुनिया एते धंधा के करियो, so will not go. So due to this, civil aviation sector was seeing huge losses. Okay. Now let us come to the part unemployment. What is the impact of COVID-19 on unemployment? If you remember, a point भी आमे last थर कथा हितले कि COVID आगुरु भी already India was seeing a 45-year high. Means this was a record at that time. After 1991, एमतिया केबे हि नथला. This was for the first time our unemployment levels were 6.1%. And I personally am telling you, I believe that this number is the last authentic number on unemployment. This figure came in 2018. Yeah, for the government continuously they are, I this is my feeling, they are bluffing or something, because ता परोडो समाने देखे चलते कि नहीं एटा unemployment level टा reduce ही चलছে. Even during COVID they did not accept कि there was huge losses. Okay, but this is a true figure. Okay, this is a, I mean this is a very authentic figure. ता परोडो जो figure उडा government कोची कि नहीं हमर तो reduce ही ची, एबे I think they are saying कि माने COVID time रू भी और much better ही आलानी unemployment level. So I don't know what to accept, but in any case, in the exam you can write about these data also, that Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, CMIE data on the job loss of migrant workers during the first lockdown. केते थिला? For example, for men this was 29%, for women this was 39%. At the same time, so can you see this 10 percentage point difference? Is this also not an example of gender discrimination or gender disparity? At the same time, when you are throwing off people, if you are doing layoffs, then if you are I mean जदि women माने ही बेसी job छाड़ी जाउछन ता माने कोन? Of course the employer told them to leave na. So this 10 percentage point can also, you can also give an example of how COVID-19 actually impacted women workers more than men workers or male workers. This was the more impact. Similarly, if you see ILO data କହିଛି COVID-19 pushed 40 crore informal workers in India into BPL category, below poverty line push कर ଦେଇଛି ବୋଲି. Now let us see from after poverty, let us see what was the impact of COVID on inequality in general in India. इनइक्वालिटी उपरे जो कोविड जो वर्सन करछि या उपरे बहुत सारा डिफरेंट रिपोर्ट्स बाहरतला ऑक्सफैम इंडिया हैज डन एक्सीलेंट बहुत सारा बहुत ही भलो भलो रिपोर्ट बाहरछि व्हाट आई सजेस्ट यू दैट यूजुअली देखियो बहुत सारा कोचिंग सेंटर मटेरियल हो कि आउ को मटेरियल हो यूजुअली से माने बहुत सारा फिगर्स दे देथिबे तो एई सब रिपोर्ट रु ना से माने कहे कि फॉर एग्जांपल कहबे 2020 रु 21 भितरे हमर रूरल एरिया रे 30% जो माने लोकों पाखरे एते पैसा नथला अर्बन एरिया रे एते लोकों पाखरे पैसा नथला so don't try to remember those kind of data if you can find some interesting kind of data which you find it easier to remember my point is you should make note of these kind of data because this is also giving a very impactful you can write it in introduction you can write in it in substantiation and it is much better than this kind of raw data a raw data रो कोन जे पढियो एग्जाम रे ताकू पुन बुझिया उटे टाइम लागियो but here it is very simplified so for example this report is saying that an unskilled worker in India is would take 3 years to earn what the richest Indian earned in 1 second only देखो मुकेश अंबानी गोटे सेकंड रे जते पैसा अर्न करूथिला 2020 रे गोटे नॉर्मल गोटे अनस्किल्ड लेबरर he would take 3 years to earn that much amount of money okay 1 second not even one day so this is the level of inequality in Indian economy so Oxfam said that already India रो economy inequal थिला बहुत inequality हम देश रे already अछि but covid-19 actually worsened it okay this is the point any doubts so far किसी डाउट अछि okay then let us move on to the next point what are the government measures to counter covid-19 OPS रे भी किसी previous year question पचरा है I think one question was asked what is the government's sorry fiscal measures taken for on covid-19 they may ask maybe some monetary measures they can ask although I doubt it but in general they can ask what are the measures taken to counter covid-19 so let us see कि कौन measures सब निया इतला so एगुड़ा initially these all will come under fiscal measure only fiscal measure देखिए हमें कौन है first vaccination drive you can write it in introduction the point of this is even if this is not related to economy but means directly not related but the point is when you are having vaccination drive then the society can return to the normal so normalcy जेतले return करियो now that will also lead to opening up of economy so directly नहले भी indirectly this is going to or even you can say directly also directly impact करे ना vaccination without because vaccination हला पर धीरे धीरे economy टा बेसी rate रे open up होबा को allow करा okay so first point is or very माने briefly introduction में लिख करियो कि because of vaccination drive here you can write about maybe 1 2 point you can write about even vaccine Maitri you can write about vaccine uh, indigenous vaccines okay so due to different measures Indian economy slowly started to open up vaccine Maitri तो चलो exactly ये होगा because this is more related to foreign affairs okay now let us come to this main part what are the different fiscal measures of the government so first you should always write about Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan this was actually the pillar of Indian economy and जହାର माने गवर्नमेंट रो पॉलिसी रेस्पॉन्स रो मेजर पिलर थिला आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान so what was the point of this Atmanirbhar Bharat if you see it had 5 different sectors one was related to economy one was on infrastructure system demography and demand so economy रे कौन कहले economy रे गवर्नमेंट रो कहया कथा कि जो लिखा है ना क्वांटम जंप्स so the meaning of this quantum jump is that in this sense quantum jump ki kichi semti reform uh, even if you are not talking about reform what is more important that fiscal stimulus that you are giving some fiscal stimulus package to the economy in the sense that if economy when economy is on a downturn government will add money directly add money to the system okay so for example suppose the industrial sector is down government will directly infuse money in the sense that the government will now maybe reduce the interest rate government will directly provide money as concession okay tax concession maybe government will directly provide money to the people directly so because of individual and at the sectoral level when you are injecting liquidity into the system So that will also lead to revival or the kickstart of the economy. That was the first pillar. Infrastructure kon hala? Infrastructure, if you remember, government tried to simplify the infrastructure uh, approval procedure, and government was also later on, government introduced new reforms. For example, national infrastructure policy, pipeline, national monetization pipeline, and a few others. We are going to read some sectoral infrastructural reforms also. Okay, these are also we are going to read in infrastructure chapter amaroda already also, we will read that. Okay, now system is technology driven. Technology driven, here you can give example of this pillar. Here example kaun ho, you can talk about Cowin, you can write about Arogya Setu, you can write about in general the digital India, you can write about Aadhaar, you can write about UPI. All of these will come as an example of system which is technology driven. Demography, एटा होची चलो एटा जुमला वाला पूरा पॉइंट. ओके, किछि यार सेमती स्पेसिफिक जिंस नै, जस्ट गोटे पॉजिटिव आउटलुक पई मैं लिखि दी. Demand is also similarly. Okay, full utilization of power of demand and supply. तो तार पॉइंट कोन स्पेसिफिक तुम जिंस कोन कला किछि नै, जस्ट टू मेक देखो तीनटा पॉइंट करिया थला जाने जबरदस्ती दिटा ऐड कर दी, पांचटा पिलर कर दे. ओके, now what is the, if you see what is the main goal of
Sir,
Atmanirbhar Bharat? Yes,
sir, एक
yes, yes.
quantum jumps, not incremental changes. Can you explain once again?
क्वांटम जम्प सेमती बहुत बड़ किसी जिंस नो. दे आर सेइंग कि मनी इन्फ्यूज करा हबो. इंक्रीमेंटलिज्म माने कोन, अल्प अल्प ताको दिया हबो. क्वांटम जम्प्स मींस इमीडिएटली
So
दिया
huge
हबो या
amount
तळ
of
पॉइंट.
money
यस
infusion.
यस, ह्यूज.
Okay.
If you see initially it was 10% of GDP, later on it was increased to 20% of GDP. Okay, this was the direct fiscal stimulus. एटा एक्स्ट्रा किसी मॉनेटरी मेजर मिसेकी आपको करतले एटा, दिस इज इन जनरल इकोनॉमिक स्टिमुलस. वी डोंट नीड टू गो इनटू डिटेल अबाउट दिस. जस्ट राइट देखो फॉर एग्जांपल एटी जो लिखि जे जो 10% ऑफ अबाउट 10% ऑफ जीडीपी, लेटर ऑन दिस इंक्रीज टू 29 लाख करोड़. 80 20 लाख करोड़ जो मु पेपर टर पीआईबी रो फोटोटा नेछि, सेटा आई थिंक अराउंड 2020 रो अर्ली डेज रे सेटा थिला. तापरे बाय द टाइम 2020 वाज एंडिंग इट इंक्रीज टू 29 लाख करोड़. तो ये 9 लाख करोड़ रा एक्स्ट्रा मनी से माने एथिरे देलेनी, माने डायरेक्टली फिस्कल स्टिमुलस पैकेज रे देलेनी, इकोनॉमिक स्टिमुलस पैकेज रे देले, इन द सेंस की माने इनडायरेक्टली लोकान को देले. ओके, सो वी डोंट नीड टू गो इन ऑल इनटू डिटेल. द पॉइंट इज इंक्रीमेंटलिज्म इज दिस थिंग. तबे धीरे धीरे सेक्टर को किछि किछि माने फैसिलिटी दोचो कोन करचो. क्वांटम जंप माने डायरेक्टली at one or twice, माने at one go or at two go, you are giving the entire money or entire benefit. It's a very simple thing. एथिरे बहुत इकोनॉमिकल कथा सेमते किछि नै क्वांटम जंप रो. Then what is the, let us see what is the aim. This is more important. What is the aim of Atmanirbhar Bharat? To make India self-reliant. Self-reliance. Self-reliance केमती आसियो? फर्स्ट हला import substitution. Now what is the point of import substitution? काहे की कथा को आउटला ई टाइम रे? Can anyone tell me? Logically also you can think about it. Why
सर जो
import substitution?
सर आपण जो कहितले चिप शॉर्टेज हे गला सेति पई आत्मनिर्भर
Excellent.
भारत.
Who is this? Devchandan, right? Hello?
Yes sir.
Correct. So that is just one example. My point is chip shortage, that is one example, because our semiconductor dependence का ऊपर अछि, China ऊपर अछि. But in general also see India depends a lot, for a lot of things India depends on imports. So for example oil, you think crude oil या पे हमें dependence अछि. तो चलो crude oil, even if we are not able to immediately resource from our own country, think of other things. For example, different
Sir, still the raw material be China रो असला. Like I was working in a company, हमारा भी we are hit by COVID.
right. You see very simple thing, coal. Coal India रे coal रो अभाव नहीं, but coking coal रो अभाव अछि. Okay, coking grade coal. So we are importing this thing. Okay. For example, think of medicine. Medicine India रे देखो, India होची generic drugs रो world leader. Okay. But what is the source of medicine? Can anyone say medicine को through theory?
सर जो एपीआई एक्टिव फार्मास्यूटिकल इंग्रेडिएंट.
How? KSM.
से
Key starting material. Okay, ए दीटा. तो ए दीटा जिन सब एटा या पे भी हम डिपेंडेंट मोस्टली ऑन चाइना. So when government, now why this realization came at this time, Atmanirbhar Bharat ର my point is just try to understand Atmanirbhar Bharat ଟା COVID time ରେ କାହିଁକି ଆମକୁ ये realization ହେଲା? Because if you remember not just COVID, ତାପରେ 2020 ରେ Galwan class ବି ହେଲା। COVID ହେଇଥିଲା initially 2020 starting ରୁ ଆମେ feel କଲୁ, 2020 end ବେଳକୁ Galwan ହେଲା। Because of this COVID ପାଇଁ କଣ ହେଲା, ବହୁତ ସାରା ଯୋଉ restriction ହେଇଗଲା, country ଭିତରେ restriction ହେଇଗଲା, ତ ତା ଦ୍ୱାରା supply chain was hit, okay। ଏଟା in general ସବୁ ଜିନିଷର supply chain ଟା hit ହେଲା। ଆଉ Galwan ପରେ specifically critical technology ର supply chain ଟା hit ହେଲା। critical technology for example semiconductor। Now China will not want to provide cheap semiconductor to India because now it sees India as a rival। So because of these things government slowly realized कि ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମ country ବହୁତ ସାରା major material ପାଇଁ to process them further, if you are even if for raw material you are dependent on some other country, then it is very bad for the economy because କିଛି ଗୋଟେ external shock ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆସିଯିବ, ଦେଖ internal shock ଟାକୁ ତ ଆମେ manage କରିଦବା, external shock ଟାକୁ manage କରିବା difficult, ଯାହା ଉପରେ ଆମର control ନଥିବ। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ for example think of OPEC countries। OPEC country କୁ ଗୋଟେ ଏଟାକୁ cartel ବୋଲି ବି କୁହାଯାଏ, oil cartel। ଏମାନେ କଣ କରନ୍ତି actually କହିବାକୁ ଗଲେ ଏଇ କିଛି country ମାନେ ମିଶିକି they decide what is going to be the price of crude oil। suppose OPEC country ମାନେ ଆଜି decide କଲେ କି ନାଇଁ ଆମେ ଧୀରେ ଧୀରେ crude oil ର price ବଢେଇଦବା, can India do anything? So external, this will be an external shock। COVID-19 was an external shock। This made us realize कि first we need to become self-reliant, and how can we become self-reliant? We have to import substitution। So if we are importing substitution, what will take its place? Indian goods and services। So from that came this motto कि vocal for local सब किण, and this will also complement our Make in India initiative। Are you able to understand or not? So this is a concept, less than, I mean fact तो किसी अच्छी, but it is more, what is more important is concept। जब मैं এটা लिखिए 29 lakh crores, okay, 20 lakh crore, by the way 1 lakh crore equals to 1 trillion, but point is this amounts to 29 trillion rupees, not dollars। In dollar term this amounts to, I mean our entire economy is somewhere around 2.9 trillion dollar, ठीक है। तो तार तुम्हें बाहर कर दो 20% जति हो, this is the amount of economic stimulus package which is equal to 20% of Indian GDP। this is the amount which was infused into the Indian economy। now write one point on, at least one point ଗୋଟେ ଲେଖିଦବ ଗରିବ କଲ୍ୟାଣ ଅନ୍ନ योजना ଉପରେ। although right now, remember right now this has ended, ଏଟା ଆଉ operational ନାହିଁ। 2020 ରେ specifically ଏଟା ବାହାରିଥିଲା ଯେତେବେଳେ COVID-19 ଆସିଲା, ତ migrant workers ମାନେ ଖାଇବାକୁ ପାଉନଥିଲେ, ବହୁତ ଲୋକମାନେ shutdown lockdown ପାଇଁ ଖାଇବାକୁ ପାଇଲେନି। so government realized कि we need to increase our food security net। food security net को हमको expand କରିବାକୁ पड़िବ। so already people are getting entitlements under NAFSA और PDS, okay, public distribution system under रे पाउଥିଲେ, है ना, national food security act under रे। but in addition to that government announced कि ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ଆମେ monthly ଏତିକି ସବୁ free food grain ଦବା, 5 kg rice or wheat, 1 kg dal, pulses, all of these things will provide, okay। but the point is ये जो lockdown 2020 ରେ ଏଟା initially it was I think for 3 or 6 months, then it was periodically extended। 2020 ରୁ 2021 ହେଇଗଲା, 21 ରୁ 22 ହେଇଗଲା, 23 end ରେ finally ତାକୁ ସେମାନେ end କରି ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି, okay। ମାନେ next year ଠୁ ନାହିଁ ଆଉ। monetary policy measures। now come to this part। अच्छा या पूर्वରୁ ଆମେ ଯୋଉଗୁଡା ଦେଖିଲି these are all fiscal policy measures, okay। now let us come to the monetary policy measures। monetary policy means this is being done by whom?
RBI।
କିଏ କରିବ? very good, central bank। so RBI କଣ କଲା, ଦେଖ ଆମର issue କଣ ହବ, just try to understand। ଏଟା ବି economics ରେ I'm sure that most of you know this, but still I'm going to repeat it once again। economy ର ଗୋଟେ central problem is always there, which is growth versus inflation। growth versus inflation କାହିଁକି ହୁଏ? ଦେଖ ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ସବୁବେଳେ ଚାହିଁବ କି ଗ୍ରୋଥ କୁ ବଢାଇବା, ବିକଜ ସେମାନେ ପାୱାର ରେ ରହିବେ, ଲୋକମାନେ ସପୋର୍ଟ କରିବେ, ଦେ ୱାଣ୍ଟ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରି ଟୁ ଡେଭଲପ, ଅଲ ଅଫ ଦିସ୍ ଥିଙ୍ଗସ୍। ସେଣ୍ଟ୍ରାଲ ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ସବୁବେଳେ ଚାହିଁବ କଣ? ଇନଫ୍ଲେସନ କୁ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରୋଲ କରିବାକୁ। ଦ ମେନ୍ ପଏଣ୍ଟ ଅଫ ସେଣ୍ଟ୍ରାଲ ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ଇଜ ଟୁ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରୋଲ ଇନଫ୍ଲେସନ। ନାଉ ଦ ପଏଣ୍ଟ ଇଜ ଗ୍ରୋଥ ଆଣ୍ଡ ଇନଫ୍ଲେସନ ଆର୍ ଡାଇରେକ୍ଟଲି ରିଲେଟେଡ। ତାର ମାନେ କଣ? माने होची इन्फ्लेशन होची गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज जहाँ अछि तार प्राइसेस टा जनरल प्राइस लेवल जोटा कहा जाए सेटा इंक्रीज हवा नाउ व्हाट ग्रोथ माने कोन की ग्रोथ माने होची गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज रो वैल्यू प्रोडक्शन एंड वैल्यू धीरे धीरे इंक्रीज हो तो एटा हेले ही हम जीडीपी बढ़ियो नाउ आर दीज नॉट रिलेटेड बर्तन कथा होची ग्रोथ जते गोटे कंट्री जते ग्रो करियो इकोनॉमी इट इज यूजुअली सीन दैट इन्फ्लेशन भी ग्रो करियो एंड वाइस वर्सा जते एक स्लाइट भलो रेंज रे इन्फ्लेशन थियो फॉर एग्जांपल लेट अस से 2 to 6% इन दिस रेंज if there is inflation now this gives incentive to different producers to keep on producing their goods and services कथा होची जदि सपोज इन्फ्लेशन 0% अछि टोटली नाही ताले प्रोड्यूसर माने काहे की कंटिन्यू करिवे माने तांकर प्रोडक्ट इन्वेंटरी को इंक्रीज काहे करिवे सेवन करिवेनी जदि स्लाइटली अल्प इन्फ्लेशन रहला ताले भलो बिकॉज़ दे विल बी इंसेंटिवाइज्ड because goods and services प्राइस धीरे धीरे बढ़ुची so they think they will make more profit now the trouble actually comes when inflation level goes beyond a certain point जेते अधिया बहुत अधिया अधिया बढ़िया को लागियो सेतले इश्यू होबे सेतले गोटे सिस्टमिक इंपैक्ट ता ऊपर पड़ियो मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक लेवल सब जिनसर जेतले प्राइस बहुत ह्यूज बढ़ी जिवो तार इंपैक्ट कोन हो मनी रो वैल्यू एक्चुअली कम जिवो you must have read these things in these terms in prelims hyperinflation है ना stagflation hyperinflation so for example if you take of example of Zimbabwe at one time जिम्बाब्वे रो इकोनॉमी रो कंडीशन एमतिया थिला कि समाने गोटे कार भर्ती तांकर लोकल करेंसी नै कि गले गोटे पैकेट ब्रेड किनियो को मिलतला why because unchecked inflation which turned into hyperinflation okay. So the main job of central bank is to keep this in check so that means there is a trade off between growth and inflation आमको सब स्ट्राइक करियार अछि गोटे एमती मिडिल ग्राउंड जोथरे ग्रोथ भी हबो और इन्फ्लेशन भी चेक भितर रहइबो but what happened with covid-19 now let us see covid-19 ने कोन हला ग्रोथ पूरा डाउन हे गला इनफैक्ट ग्रो रो रेट कोन हमें तो सीधा इकोनॉमी इट वेंट इनटू कंट्रैक्शन हमें एटा पढिलु ओवरऑल कंट्रैक्शन हला क्वार्टर 1 टा होजी 24% अराउंड कंट्रैक्ट हेतिला so when the economy is in contraction mode गवर्नमेंट कोन करियो पब्लिक एक्सपेंडिचर बढ़े दो राइट पब्लिक एक्सपेंडिचर जतो बढ़े देबे समाने now what is the point होची गवर्नमेंट एते बेसी बेसी स्पेंड करिया को लागियो लोक तो स्पेंड आउ करना गवर्नमेंट ही स्पेंड कर परियो गवर्नमेंट तो स्पेंड करियो इट इज होप्ड दैट द मनी विल सर्कुलेट इन द पब्लिक एंड दिस विल किक स्टार्ट योर इकोनॉमी जो थे लोक माने स्पेंड करिया को चाहो नथि को भी वे रे तांग पाखर एक्स्ट्रा पैसा आसिले दे विल अगेन स्टार्ट टू स्पेंड and this would lead to again growth of the economy but the point is when you are providing money to the people एबे कोन हला एबे मार्केट और पब्लिक पाखरे कोन हला एक्स्ट्रा मनी एबे आसीला but is the goods and services have increased immediately their production has not increased immediately but money amount is has increased so what will happen with the same amount of goods and services when people have more amount of money then there will be inflation because inflation means with the same I mean level of goods and services or same supply when demand is increasing then it will also lead to inflation एबे भाबो कि समस्त पाखे सपोज बहुत अधिया अधिया पैसा अछि फॉर सम रीजन माने फॉरगेट अबाउट व्हिच रीजन बट फॉर सम रीजन वी ऑल हैव लॉट्स ऑफ मनी बट गुड्स एंड प्रोड्यूसर्स मार्केट रे सेम अछि सपोज गोटे टीवी अछि मु आ देवचंदन ता ऊपर फाइटिंग कर so suppose I have माने 10 lakh rupees he has 10 lakh rupees the if the amount of the TV is 50,000 I will say कि ना मु याठू अधिक अमाउंट दे किनी मु 60,000 दे किनी देवचंदन से will say कि मु तो एटा 70,000 दे किनी why because I have money so when government was spending a lot of money then that also again led to higher inflation okay so now it was the job of the central bank how to strike this balance where we will also promote growth which is the main objective of the government and at the same time there will also be inflation targeting so a technical term again you must have read about this inflation targeting होची कि आमे गोटे टारगेट रेंज भितर आमे रखिया and if you remember RBI had decided this range to be which percent 4% plus 2% so that means 2% to 6% a range भितर आमे रखिया and if you remember RBI had also decided that inflation targeting is now going to be the stance of our monetary policy stance of monetary policy माने this is our central objective माने आरबीआई रो एटा सेंट्रल ऑब्जेक्टिव हो. But what is the main policy of the government? Government रो main policy हला growth. So due to this tension, RBI had to strike a fine balance. So initially RBI lowered the policy rates. एटा initially कहीं की करथिले? For example, if you see the repo rate 4% ହେଇଥିଲା. Okay. What is the point? Point होची कि initially जेतले government pressurize कला RBI को कि नहीं हमको growth दरकार, सेतले हमें RBI was forced to lower the repo rate. So this was done to support growth. But later on, if you see around after 2021 to 22, around 2022, slowly again in phases, RBI actually again started to increase repo rate in very gradual terms. Okay, 4.25, 4.5 एमती करी, I think about 4.5 or something अच्छे, right? Just check how much it is right now. So this is known as accommodative stance. The second, we are not going into detail about this liquidity infusion into the market. If you want, you can read about it. You can read about Operation Twist. Current affairs पढ़िथियो, but we are not going into detail. So in general, this was the policy of RBI.
Sir, ଏବେ 6.5 ଅଛି repo rate.
Right, 6.5 here. Again, see, code 4% or 6%. Acha, by the way, I think that many of you would feel कि 4% to 6.5% ହେଇଗଲା repo rate. We are not talking about inflation rate, repo rate. So किए भावुथे एटा कोन असुविधा हला 2% ही तो बढ़िची 2.5% बढ़िची कोन असुविधा हला 0.25% बढ़ी गले बैंक इंटरेस्ट रेट I mean in general it will infuse a lot of money into the system. Okay, so 0.25%, 0.5% यार वैल्यू बहुत अधिक गोटे गोटे माने साइकिल ले यूजुअली 0.25% रु 0.5% भितर बढ़ा हुए 1% जदि बढ़ी दिया तो सेटा पूरा न्यूज माने नेशनल कोन हेटा इंटरनेशनल न्यूज हे जो कि इंडिया रो सेंट्रल बैंक 1% बढ़े okay बढ़े देले कि कमे देले जहां so this is not a small jump, this is a huge jump. Now if it is 6.5%, okay, एटा तुम चेक करी कहला कि ऑनलाइन नु हमें
हाँ
हेलो
सर, हाँ सर.
okay, so now if it I don't know, but okay, now if it is
So it's a November
6.5%,
data, November 2023.
okay,
So
okay, November means yes, this is the latest. Okay. So that means what? Now you can understand that now RBI does not have an accommodative stance. Now we can call it a hawkish stance. Okay, so this is a stance to reduce inflation. Okay. But at that time in 2020, it was taking an accommodative stance. Why? Because government was pressurizing RBI. Very simply. Okay. हमारा फर्स्ट हमको बंचियार अच्छे इकोनॉमी को रिवाइव करियार अच्छे तापर इन्फ्लेशन को हमें कंट्रोल करिया राइट इनफैक्ट इफ यू सी ओनली टुडे आई थिंक देयर वाज ए न्यूज़ कि इंडिया रो जो पब्लिक डेट ओके दिस इज ऑलमोस्ट टचिंग 100 गोइंग टू टच 100% ऑफ द जीडीपी एटा की कहछि आईएमएफ कहछि आई थिंक जस्ट चेक दिस रिसेंटली अबाउट अ न्यूज़ आस्थिला okay, now let us move on to the next point. Economic recovery, very important. देखो थोड़े आगुरु COVID-19 in general पचारि देछन्ती एथरा में भी economic recovery कथा पचारि दी पारन. Okay, try to understand what is the meaning of economic recovery. If you see the business cycle एटा तुम prelims class रे भी पढ़ी थियो कि बहिरो पढ़थियो और class रे कोठी भी पढ़ाई थियो. You know this that all business go through this kind of cycle. Cycle टा कोन up down रा cycle हुए गोटे सीजन रे यूजुअली अप थाए तापर डाउन हे जाए एमती हे जाए जोटारे अप थाए एटा जो पीक पॉइंट को या कहंती ए फेज को कहंती ग्रोथ और बूम फेज तापर पुणी जेतले रिड्यूस करे दैट इज कॉल्ड डिप्रेशन दिस इज कॉल्ड ट्रफ तापर पुणी एटा रिकवर करियो रिकवरी एंड अगेन रिकवरी आफ्टर जेतले फॉल करियो दिस पार्ट इज नोन एज रिसेशन नेगेटिव पार्ट रेतल चल जी सो दिस इज द नॉर्मल बिजनेस साइकिल द पॉइंट इज जस्ट एज ए business or not one business I mean businesses in the economy just as businesses in the economy go through ups and downs similarly countries economies may also go through ups and downs now this cycle is actually not as frequent as business cycle तो यार जो duration ना country रो economy रो जो up and down होकर duration now this length is very long okay हे पारे 8 to 10 years almost को आ जाए कि 8 to 10% is लिखी sorry 8 to 10 years से इनका चर्न हुए up and down हुए but this is not a again fixed figure some people have said noticed this but other people also dispute this But in general, if you see 8 to 10 years empty country ro economic GDP growth rate, you will see up and down, up and down, up. The point is, when a country's economy is going down, then again it is recovering. Is it recovering just as a business cycle? এই ভଳିଆ মানে এই ଯୋଉ ଏତେ smoothly କଣ recover ହୁଏ? The point is, the shape of recovery may be different depending on what kind of economy it is, what are the different policy measures the government is taking, what kind of internal or external shock to the economy did they get. So depending on all of this, the shape of the recovery will be different. So now let us see कि या माने कौन shape of recovery different हमारा माने कौन. So just see this diagram. Okay. See this different kinds of recovery तांकर diagram का देखो. If you see, there are different types of recovery named after different forms. So A type रो जो recovery है ला, एटा कहउछन B type recovery. एटा कहउछि U type recovery. जो shoes टा को कहउछि एमिति जो एटा देखछ ना एमिति नाइकी रो एमिति चिन्ह, that is called a swoosh. Okay. एटा से नाइकी रो टिक भले आसुनी कि. So swoosh. Okay. Similarly, Z kind of recovery, down again up again down, then again back to normal or previous level. W type recovery माने बहुत बेसी आगो डाउन हेगला तापर समवॉट रिकवर कला तापर पुनी टू अ सर्टेन एक्सटेंट डाउन हला लाइक दैट. एंड L shaped recovery is something which once जो लेवल को डाउन हला तापर से आओ सेम पुराना लेवल को फेरिबो नाही. So now let us try to understand कि कोन होउची कोन यार माने कोन. Now suppose गोटे कंट्री रे कोन हला, let us say due to any external shock. Okay, country suppose initially it was supposed to, economy was supposed to move like this. So this is our GDP growth rate. You can think about this. Okay, this is our GDP growth rate which is almost steadily growing. एमती तो exactly पूरा straight होगा नहीं, but overall if you plot the graph, so it will be something like this. Okay, so overall it is growing. Due to some external shock, suppose a point किसी external shock आसला, suppose this reduced. Now we expect that this will again increase, but point is, will it increase to the same level? Will it even increase further, or it will not increase to that level? Maybe it will recover, but to this extent, and then it will continue like this. Okay. So depending on what is actually happening, so we get a different kinds of shapes. Now from these shapes, can you tell me that overall what you have maybe heard from news and all, what do you think was the India's type of recovery? India को type of recover करछ. What have you read anything in the news?
So there is a debate between B and K.
Very good. You entirely summarized our discussion. But okay, so that there is a debate, there is a controversy. अच्छा, can you tell me किए कहउछि V, किए कहउछि K, and काहे की कहउछन?
Sir, B is given by the government, and the critics are saying that K, because the employment level has not been uh,
ना
hasn't
एम्प्लॉयमेंट
recovered.
संगे तो V रे भी तो सेमते सेम लेवल हला बोली एम्प्लॉयमेंट से सेति पहुंचला बोली
अच्छा
जीडीपी हला
सॉरी
जॉबलेस रेट
जीडीपी
इट्स
एमती
नॉट.
କହିପାରିବେ କି ମାନେ କିଛି କିଛି ସେକ୍ଟର V
Yes,
shape ର ରିକଭରି
sectors.
କରିଛନ୍ତି ଆଉ
Right, right,
ଡିଫରେଣ୍ଟ
right.
ସେକ୍ଟର
Correct.
ହରାଇଜଣ୍ଟାଲି ରିକଭର କରୁଛନ୍ତି.
Yes, yes, correct. So it's not about employment, it is about sector. Okay. So now let us see. अच्छा, a type of shape रे कहा किसी डाउट हो कि type of shape you are not actually supposed to draw in the exam hall. You are only supposed to draw two shapes. One is V shape, one is K shape. एमितिया कहीं तुम पचारिए कि सबू सबू शेप गुड़ा कौन कौन कुह बोलिए. But in general you can understand this is V shape means economy recover कला. ओके, जति माने आमे एक्सपेक्ट करथुल सेति रिकवर करियाला प्रीवियस लेवल. यू शेप माने रिकवर करिया को बेसी टाइम लागला, ऑल्दो रिकवर कला बट रिकवर करिया को बेसी समय लागला. बता एटा देखो बी माने कोन इमीडिएटली शार्पली जो इंक्रीज हेछि ना एटा त माने बहुत इमीडिएटली से रिकवर करिगला. यू टा होछि रिकवर करूछि बट टिके डेरी रे रिकवर करूछि. ओके, टाइम लैग रे. सिमिलरली इफ यू सी जेड, जेड रो माने कोन डाउन अप पुनी अगेन बैक टू नॉर्मल. डब्ल्यू माने कोन डब्ल्यू रो यारो एटा नोटिस करो एटी बेसी डाउन हेछि देन कम रिकवर करछि. अब एटा तो एल रो जानि परछो एल माने होची जो लेवल रे एक्चुअली जिबा कथा से लेवल से आ केबे पहुंचियो ही नै. सब गोटे परमानेंट डैमेज हेची इकोनॉमी. ओके, लेट मी जस्ट क्लियर दिस आउट, अदरवाइज ए नोट रे तुम जानि परियो कोन हेची. ओके, सो नाउ लेट अस सी कि इंडिया रो इकोनॉमी या भितरु को टाइप रो रिकवर करछि बोली किए कोन कहउचंती. So if you see which type of economic recovery is in India, so again द गवर्नमेंट कहूँ स्टार्टिंग कि आम तो वी शेप रिकवरी कर तार पॉइंट कौन गवर्नमेंट तो सब निजर पॉजिटिव साइड टा कहबे ना तो गवर्नमेंट कहूँ कि वी शेप माने जोटा इमिडिएटली रिकवर कर कि आम जो आत्मनिर्भर भारत पैकेज देलु पॉलिसी मेजर्स नेलु फिस्कल पॉलिसी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी या द्वारा कौन कलु आम फुल्ली रिकवर कर सो वी शेप माने होची फुल रिकवर ऑफ द इकोनॉमी आफ्टर एनी incident external or internal shock okay but what has happened is that India, and this is what critics are saying, that Indian economy has undergone K-shaped recovery. The point is that if we are talking about full recovery, the question is for which sector. Point is some sector will recover fully, but there are some other sectors which will not recover fully. So the criticism is that the recovery to this part, if you see this red part देखो तो किसी सेक्टर रेड पार्ट रे रिकवर करी these are some sectors and some other sectors have gone into this part other sectors so किसी sector जो recover करी गले they are, if you see this, is this not a K shape माने एटा गोटे K भलिया आछी नै so some sectors are recovering and others are not recovering, you call that kind of recovery as economic recovery as K shaped recovery. And now there is a consensus among independent economists that Indian economy has probably most likely has undergone K shaped recovery. Now, can you tell me which sectors do you think have not recovered to the earlier level? Co sector? We already discussed one
Manufacturing.
sector. Yes, manufacturing is one sector. Another services sector
Tourism.
with co sector. Yes, someone else has saying co.
Tourism.
Very good. Tourism. What else? What a phrase कहती मन पका contact sensitive sectors. Okay. They have not recovered to the same level. Okay. Maybe it will take them a more time to recover. For example, if you see airlines, many of the airlines, even if right now they are profitable, but सही सेम लेवल को रिटर्न करिया को टाइम लागियो बहुत सारा एयरलाइन इंडिया रो एमिति भी से माने देबाळिया हे गला ना दे वेंट आउट ऑफ बिजनेस ड्यूरिंग दैट फेज ओनली एंड नाउ इफ यू सी इंडियन इकोनॉमी इज यूजुअली आम सब सेक्टर रे डुओपोली माने ओनली टू मेजर कंपनीज आर देयर and other companies are lost and they are simply out of the competition. So if you see for example in civil airlines, India ro civil airlines रे को दुटा duopoly का भितर अछि tell me. One is Indigo, another is Tata Airlines. Tata under रे बहुत सारा छोटा छोटा आछि, Air India भी Tata under पळेला. If you know, Vistara is also Tata group रो ही part. Okay. So now the duopoly in civil aviation is Indigo and Tata. If you see the telecom sector, का भितर duopoly अछि?
Airtel or Jio.
Bharati Airtel and Jio. You notice this in almost all major sectors of India. Now there has become duopoly. Earlier there used to be माने ଟିକେ egalitarian थिला तो competition बेसी थिला एबे duopoly हेइची and the critics are saying that this is reducing the level of competition. Again चलो हेटा तो this is not part of our discussion today. So now let us move on to the next point कि ए सब उडा हला इंडिया ऊपर कोन इंपैक्ट पड़ला. Now let us see कि ओडिशा इकोनॉमी ऊपर कोविड रो कोन इंपैक्ट पड़ला. Now first and foremost in any state related economy point you should write about state रो जते domestic product थिवो तारो आमे ओवरऑल देखिया कि तारो ग्रोथ रेट ता कते इंक्रीज करछि कि डिक्रीज करछि. Similarly if you see as per the Odisha economic survey 2020-21 data, now can anyone tell me why I have taken this older data?
So newer data published in new.
I know 21 22
Sir,
Sir,
economic
ଏଟା
survey
COVID
ବାହାରିଛି
ପାଇଁ ନା?
20.
sir, ସେତେବେଳର
COVID
ସିଚୁଏସନ
yes
ଅନୁସାରେ
COVID
ନିଆଯାଇଛି।
ସେତେବେଳେ ସିଚୁଏସନ ହିସାବରେ ସେଇ ଡାଟାଟା ମୁଁ ନେଇଛି ଜାଣିକି ତ ଏଇ ନୂଆ ଇଏ ଗୁଡାରେ ସେମାନେ କଣ କରିଛନ୍ତି ବହୁତ ଅଧିକା ବଢେଇ ଚଢେଇକି ଦେଖି ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି କି ନାଇଁ ଆମର ଏତେ ବି ଖରାପ ନଥିଲା but for if you see that year's data ଯେବେ immediately impact ପଡିଥିଲା 2020 ରେ ସେତେବେଳେ ଆମର state domestic product growth rate this shrunk by -4.9%. This is for fiscal year 2021. But now let us discuss कि गोटे सिंगल पॉइंट जण कहे कि गोटे सिंगल डेटा दो -4.9%. व्हाट डज दैट मीन? आमे कहया कि यार हमर तो देश पूरा देश भी श्रिंक करी छि इकोनॉमी श्रिंक करी छि -6 पॉइंट अराउंड रे श्रिंक करी छि तो ओडिसा यदि -4.9% हला असुविधा कोन. नाउ कम टू दिस पार्ट. what is the sectoral share of Odisha economy and how COVID-19 has impacted different sectors itself. Now if you see ame gote Indian economy pe overall level table discuss bahar karthile. So Odisha ପାଇଁ भी just check this table. Can you tell me what is the main difference between India ro jo contribution और Odisha ro jo contribution from this column? Tell me what is the main difference. By the way
Sir,
याको add
Agriculture
कले
रे कम अछि
sir industry रे बेसी अछि ओडिसा
yes you see industry रे बेसी अछि agriculture रे कम food कम हला agriculture रे India रे तो एबे around
sorry
18% अछि
industry
okay so industry is this not a good thing for us? But can you notice another thing? Bartan job, even if it is good thing for Odishan economy, we at least we're thinking that it is good right now. The problem with this figure is that, by the way, एको add कले 99% as you don't worry. The point is कि एतरे जो point decimal point रे जहाँ figure तले मुझे वो नहीं just for your ease of understanding. तो परे कौन हो जाने calculate करी कया मेरे तो 100% हो. So what is the point? The point is that जदि गोटे state रो गोटे सिग्निफिकेंट पोर्सन सर्विसेज सेक्टर तो एमती भी रिकवर करिजो आमे कथा हलो सर्विसेज सेक्टर कोन वर्क फ्रॉम होम भी करके रिकवर करिजो बट जदि गोटे स्टेट रो इंडस्ट्री भी गोटे सिग्निफिकेंट पोर्सन अछि वी आर नॉट सेइंग स्टिल टू ए ग्रेट एक्सटेंट इंडिया रो इंडस्ट्री सॉरी ओडिसा रो इंडस्ट्री डेवलप हेनी एटा आमे क्रिटिसाइज कर but from the compared to even the national share if your state share of industry is more and then as something as important as covid-19 is hitting यार सबुठ हाईएस्ट इंपैक्ट कहा ऊपर था यूजुअली इंडस्ट्री ऊपर ही था that means that will be much worse for that state. So you see here the जो shrink करछि sectoral decline is due to covid 21 रे agriculture has -6.5 this is -8.8 okay. And notice another thing India case रे एटा भी did you notice or not India case रे एटा केते हेतला do you remember was this negative or positive this continued to be positive agriculture for India overall
yes
this continued to be a
3.44
lone bright spot right but for Odisha this decreased so that means आमको गोटे double whammy पड़ला you can call this a double whammy माने दुईटा जाकर दुईटा को sector रो huge impact पड़ला so for that reason I suspect that you know -4 even -4.9% that figure might not be these figure I trust but ये figure टा चलो किछ नहीं हमें एते political side को जीवा this is the sectoral impact on Odisha economy okay if you want to remember a simple figure उड़ा मन रखियो both point formula मन रखते हैं 21.8% overall just remember 21 36 42 now let us come to poverty in Odisha by the way ମୁଁ कौन कहली ना poverty और unemployment ऊपर टिके लिखी देली note रे my point was कि in general हमें poverty in Odisha unemployment in Odisha previous class रे discuss करी नथली and sometimes it might happen they can ask you directly or indirectly so you should have some material some further point किए I think last class रे किए पचार थला ना कि unemployment Odisha रो statistics किछि अछि so I found it and now I included it now let us see what is the level of poverty in Odisha now if you see the national multidimensional poverty index released by Niti Aayog it is saying that what is the poverty level by the way this kind of poverty is what multidimensional poverty of course because this is a national multidimensional poverty index in general poverty कहले usually आमे जोटा below poverty line वाला poverty को नोचे से poverty को usually बुझो this is multidimensional poverty so what is the extension of extent of multidimensional poverty in India versus Odisha so in India it was saying that Niti Aayog said ki 14.9% you can also write this almost 15% okay if you don't want to remember this almost 15% in Odisha it was 15.6% means multidimensional poverty रे भी Odisha average to just टिके कम अछि just टिके खराब अछि okay. But at the same time during 2004 to 2012 Odisha achieved a 24.6 percentage points reduction in poverty so that is a good thing okay. Now if you see एटा हमें डिस्कस करथिलु एटा कोन मने अछि bare
BNI
necessities
index
index bare necessities index we had discussed that economic survey 2021 had given this survey and in all of the transition if you remember combined rural urban combined रे भी ଆଉ खाली rural रे भी
ओडिसा
yes
फास्ट टू लास्ट सबुथिरे अछि
Yes, that is the, I mean, unfortunately, you remember that, say, ଚାରିଟା figure ମନେ ଥିଲା ନା, ସବୁଥିରେ only common state was Odisha, ସବୁଥିରେ red ରେ ଥିଲା, red ମାନେ below 0.5 ତାର score. So you can write this also, कि Odisha was one of the worst performers in the bare necessities index, which measures access of people to bare necessities like food, shelter, housing, all of these things. This is also a good measure of poverty. देखो ମୋର ଏଥିରେ ଗୋଟେ ମନେ ପଡିଲା ଗୋଟେ ପଏଣ୍ଟ, ଏବେ ରିସେଣ୍ଟଲି ଯାହା ବି poverty related question ଆସିବ ନା, ତୁମେ ଯଦି ପୁରୁଣା statistics ଦେଖିବ କି ରଙ୍ଗରାଜ କମିଟି କହିଥିଲା କି ଏତେ percent, I think ତେନ୍ଦୁଲକର committee was the last committee ଯୋଉଟା କହିଥିଲା ଗୋଟେ head count ratio ସେମାନେ ଦେଇଥିଲେ 27% or 21% around that figure. Okay, actual figure might even be higher. So older poverty, actually poverty ର definition has changed over the time. So ଆମେ ଯଦି ସେ ପୁରୁଣା still these commission କୁ ଆମେ ମାନୁଛୁ, okay, but the point is if you are giving newer concepts of poverty, new concept of poverty ଆସିଛି which is a widened concept of poverty, multi-dimensional poverty, bare necessities, these are widened things. Okay, human development index, even that is a widened thing, widened ମାନେ scope ର. Now your answer is actually more enriched. Instead of someone just writing कि ଆମର ଏଇ କମିଟି ହିସାବରେ ଏତିକି percentage ଲୋକ below poverty line ଥିଲେ. So try to write about these newer concepts, right? अच्छा, any doubt so far? କିଛି doubt ଅଛି? bare
Sir,
necessities
COVID-19 ର impact in poverty ସେମିତି କିଛି data point ଅଛି?
ନା, ଓଡିଶାର କିଛି ଓଡିଶା ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ କିଛି ଦେଇ ନାହିଁ, କିଛି ମୁଁ ଦେଖିଲି ଇଣ୍ଡିପେଣ୍ଡେଣ୍ଟ କିଛି ରିପୋର୍ଟ ଅଛି। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ କଥା ହଉଛି ୟାକୁ ତମେ କୋଟ କରିବାର ପଏଣ୍ଟ କିଛି ନାହିଁ। ଆମେ ଇଣ୍ଡିପେଣ୍ଡେଣ୍ଟ ଭିତରେ କିଛି ୱେଲ ନୋନ୍ କିଛି ଅଛନ୍ତି, ଯେମିତି ସିଏମଆଇ ଅଛି, ଏଜୁକେସନ ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରଥମ ଅଛି, ତ ଏମାନଙ୍କର କୋଟ କରିପାରିବ, ବଟ୍ ଇନ୍ ଜେନେରାଲ ଆଉ ଛୋଟ ମୋଟ ଏମାନଙ୍କ ସର୍ଭେର କଣ କୋଟ କରିବ? ଓଡିଶା ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ କିଛି ଆକ୍ସେପ୍ଟ ହିଁ କରୁନି। ଆଚ୍ଛା, ଆଉ ଏଇଥିରୁ ମୋର ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ କଥା ମନେ ପଡିଲା। ଆଚ୍ଛା, ବାଇ ଦ ୱେ, ଏଇ ଯେତିକି ବି ମୁଁ ଫିଗର ସବୁ ଜିଡିପି ଗ୍ରୋଥ ରେଟ୍, ଏସଡିପି ଗ୍ରୋଥ ରେଟ୍ ଯାହା ବି ସବୁ କମ୍ପାଇଲ କରିଛି ନା, ୟୁ ୱିଲ୍ ରିୟଲାଇଜ ୱାନ୍ ଥିଙ୍ଗ, ଆଗରୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଇକୋନୋମିକ ସର୍ଭେ ପଢୁଥିଲୁ, ସେମାନେ ଇକୋନୋମିକ ସର୍ଭେରେ ଡିରେକ୍ଟଲି ବକ୍ସଟା ମାନେ ଟେବୁଲଟା ଅଲରେଡି ରେଡି କରିକି ଆମକୁ ଦେଇ ଦଉଥିଲେ। ଏବେ କଣ ହଉଛି, ଲାଷ୍ଟ 2-3 ବର୍ଷରେ ତୁମେ ଖୋଜ, you try to find out some authentic unemployment data, poverty related data from government sources, you will not find in any absolute figure, ମାନେ sorry absolute table form ରେ ତୁମେ ପାଇବନି। ତୁମେ କୋଉ ଗୋଟେ ଲାଇନରେ ଲେଖା ହେଇଥିବ ସେଇଠୁ ସେମିତି ପିକଅପ୍ କରିକି ନିଜେ କମ୍ପାଇଲ କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ। ଆଣ୍ଡ ତା ବଦଳରେ ସେମାନେ ବହୁତ absurd gimmicks ଟାଇପ ର ଜିନିଷ ନେଇ ଆଣିଛନ୍ତି। ତୁମେ ଲେଟେଷ୍ଟ ଓଡିଶା ଇକୋନୋମିକ ସର୍ଭେ 2023 ଟା ଦେଖ, ଏଥିରେ ମୁଁ ଖୋଜିକି ପାଇଲିନି ଡାଇରେକ୍ଟଲି ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟ ଉପରେ ଚାପ୍ଟର ହିଁ ନାହିଁ। there is no chapter on employment, there is no chapter on poverty, although employment ର ଗୋଟେ box diagram କରିକି ଦିଆ ହେଇଛି, and rural and urban development ରେ ବି କିଛି employment କଥା ଅଛି, but there is no chapter. For example, there is a chapter on agriculture, there is a chapter on industries, there is a chapter on services sector. Rather what they are doing is gimmicks ର ମାନେ କଣ ନା, sustainable development ପରି ଗୋଟେ chapter ଦେଇ ଦିଆଯାଇଛି, ଗୋଟେ climate or something gender equality ତା ଉପରେ chapter ଦିଆଯାଇଛି ନୂଆ। but try to understand ଏମାନେ କାହିଁକି କରୁଛନ୍ତି, because very simple thing, unemployment, poverty, these are things that the opposition can use to criticize the government, very simple thing. So they are making ମାନେ statistics ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ଏତେ ଖେଳ ହଉଛି, ସେମାନେ easily available format ରେ କିଛି ଜିନିଷ ଦଉ ହିଁ ନାହାନ୍ତି। very unfortunate, but what can you do, center is doing, state is also doing same thing. ମୁଁ ତ 2018 ପରଠୁ unemployment data କୁ accept ହିଁ କରେନି government କୋଉ ବି government source। but anyway, we have to write some points, so we'll write some points. I got distracted. Let us talk about unemployment in Odisha. Periodic labor force survey 2020 data, government data. Okay, it says that unemployment in Odisha has reduced to 7%. So this is lower than the previous year, whereas national average is 7.11%. ମାନେ ମାନେ ସେ କହୁଛି କି ଓଡ଼ିଶା ଆଉ national average almost same ହିଁ ଅଛି. This is 2020 ର data. Now the latest CMI data 2023 କହୁଛି कि unemployment rate was the lowest in Odisha during COVID-19. Means among all the states, if you see the unemployment rate, Odisha ସବୁଠୁ less ଥିଲା 1.54%. Okay, while its labor force participation rate was nearly 40%, which is huge. Okay, during this ମାନେ ଏଇ period ପାଇଁ ଏଟା ବେଶୀ ଥିଲା। So that means this is something good. COVID-19 ରେ ଚलो ଅନ୍ୟ state ମାନେ ଯେତେବେଳେ suffer କରୁଥିଲେ, even I don't know what is the main reason behind this, but they are saying कि our employment was high. One reason is this ki odisha ra bahut sara migrant laborer, actually if you see migrant laborer mane koti usually thandi jibe either chennai or surat and ahmedabad or delhi, kolkata, all of these places, right? But due to covid-19 जो shutdown हला तापर संग जो mistreatment हला बहुत सारा migrant worker permanently shift करियले back to odisha. So I think probably this is the main cause, but in this CMI data I could not find the main reason. This is my reason. So जो मैंने बहुत permanently जो मैंने decide कर ली नहीं हमको तो बाहर रहिवार नहीं नहीं, because of that unemployment rate was less. Now you see this is the only figure I could find out माने गोटे presentable गोटे immediate format रे इटा अछि economic survey. This is the latest survey. So if you see here labor force participation rate, worker population ratio and unemployment rate in Odisha, what is the level? So this is the only place where they have admitted this. But in any case, they are saying that unemployment rate is gradually declining. 2018-19 7.1% था हम discuss करूँ 7%. Then now माने latest जोड़ा 2020-21 पता देखो 2023 रे इटा बाहर होची रिपोर्ट टा ସେମାନେ 2021 ର latest ଟା ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି because this is the confirmed figure. 22 वाला year रो ଆଉ 23 वाला year रो processing होतो सेटा ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଦୁଇ ବର୍ଷ lag ଆସିବ ସେ data ଟା. So this is the latest figure that we have 5.3% unemployment rate, which is also fine. I mean, to some extent it is fine because if you see 2018 itself and 18-19 even before COVID-19, India's unemployment rate was somewhere around 6.1%. So in that comparison, if Odisha's unemployment rate is 5.3%, I mean it is fine. So देखी नबा ये point उड़ा labor force participation rate 56.5%, worker population ratio is 53.5%. Okay.
सर एटा डेटाटा कोट कला बेले अकॉर्डिंग टू कोन लिखिबा माने इकोनॉमिक सर्वे ना
PL you can write either economic survey data as PLFS. एटे देखो एटे PLFS रे आसी. You can write either, okay? It doesn't matter. Original देखो original data टा जेहेतु PLFS रो आसी हम ସେମାନେ कोट करछन ओडसे economic survey रे, so better write PLFS. Okay. Now come to this part. Scheme amar kon Odisha government ro kon scheme अछि to counter impacts of COVID-19. Again, all of these are taken from budget 2000 previous year budget ru नहीं ए वर्ष budget ru नहीं because latest budget रे directly COVID-19 related सेमते scheme किछि नाही. Those are generic schemes. Okay. तो सही वर्ष ही जब कोविड इंपैक्ट हेतला तो तारो नेक्स्ट बजेट रे समान किछि जिंस आनले व्हिच यू कैन राइट अबाउट व्हिच आर स्पेसिफिक टू कोविड-19. इन जनरल भी तापरे बहुत सारा स्कीम मु इन जनरल भी पोवर्टी एंड डेवलपमेंट रे दे दी, सो यू कैन रेफर टू दैट आल्सो. So first was this scheme, which is something literally God knows ki scheme ro point kon achi. I could not find anything about this. If you can find ki actually ethra karibar kon achi, what they were doing, please let me know because even I don't know. And a scheme ro kon abe status bhi tara jana nahi. They just said ki we are issuing a new scheme, New Odisha, Empowered Odisha, and that was apparently to promote health, education, livelihood, infrastructure, industries. Whether they were giving some funds, what they are doing, whether they are undertaking some specific projects, there is no data now. So but से budget rate आसले कि नुआ ओडिशा empowered ओडिशा मोटा कथा कथा करली मन रखो administration में तुम से जिंस देखियो सब वाला old scheme will be old wine in new bottle. Old scheme को repackaging and rebranding. This happens both in center and states. For example, if you see आगुर जो BPGY थिला बिजु पक्का घर योजना, also known as that was also known as Mo Kudia. तार status कौन है पे कहीं जान चाहिए. Now it on paper it exists, but यार fund किसी आसु नहीं. Now it is almost entirely PMAY dependent center रो जोटा. But they are saying कि नाइन चल similarly बहुत सारा इम्तिया scheme अच्छी जोड़ा कि तार status माने it is officially it exists, but तार किसी funding आसले तो सेटा जिन सेटा implement हो. So if you even send RTI, they will say कि yes it exists, but there is no funding. BSKY चलो BSKY तो चाली ची. You must know this 5 lakh per family दोचंती, and this is for 10 lakh for the women of the family, right? Mukhyamantri Swasthya Seva Mission, Health Infrastructure and Services. This is complementary or in line of National Health Mission NHM. NHM under the central government funding दिए hospital building बने आकु. ସେମିତିଆ ତାର ସିମିଲର ଜିନିଷଟା ହଉଛି ମୁଖ୍ୟ ଷ୍ଟେଟ୍ ଲେଭେଲରେ ମୁଖ୍ୟମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ସ୍ୱାସ୍ଥ୍ୟ ସେବା ମିଶନ, ହେଲ୍ଥ ରିଲେଟେଡ୍ ଇନଫ୍ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରକ୍ଚର। ନିର୍ମଲ ସ୍କିମ୍ sanitation public place, not just sanitation, आउर भी 2-3 पॉइंट कौन थिला, but anyway don't have to write in detail. निर्माया फ्री मेडिसिन, निदान फ्री डायग्नोस्टिक्स, ओडिशा स्टेट ट्रीटमेंट फंड गोटे अछि, आउर भी 2-3 पॉइंट थिला, I knowingly did not include because I know that you will not be able to remember most of these things, so just write 4-5 schemes जहाँ मन पड़े लिखियो, don't need to write all of that. WASH schemes माने water and sanitation related schemes, water sanitation and health. So Basudha, you can write about Basudha, which is related to water supply. Bakshi Jagabandhu scheme 1, water supply. You can here also write about Sujal, Sujal project Sujal, which is related to what? Tap water and drinking water. And tap through it, drinking water directly milio. Puri was the first city in the country. Similarly, Odisha integrated sanitation improvement project. So these are all directly related to schemes directly related to COVID-19. Now let us come to this part, schemes which are directly or indirectly related to poverty alleviation and development in Odisha. Most of you would know about, these are the major schemes. I have only written major schemes. So different essay, different answer, it's not just in GS3, you can also write in GS2 and GS. GS4 GS2 social justice गोटे पार्ट अच्छी जोटा से लिखिपार। मधुबाबू पेंशन योजना which corresponds to, देखो यूजुअली कौन ही सेंटर रो किसी गोटे फ्लैगशिप स्कीम ही स्टेट रो भी ताकू गोटे कॉपी तो आम कहबानी ताकू कम्प्लीमेंट करी हे पारे कि सेंटर रो जो गोटे स्कीम टा अच्छी से स्कीम टारू जेतिकी तार बेनिफिशियरी अछंती किछि लोक आ बेनिफिशियरी बळी जाइछन, तो स्टेट स्कीम माने कोन करन ट्राई करन तांको कैप्चर करिया, सो दैट एवरीवन इज अंडर द नेट। आ यूजुअली जदि स्टेट अंडर से स्कीम रे जने यदि के अवेल करछि, यूजुअली स्टेट कैन आल्सो रिफ्यूज टू प्रोवाइड द सेम सर्विस। फॉर एग्जांपल पीएमएवाई रे जो मान को घर मिले, यूजुअली बीपीजीवाई रे सन को आगरो घर मिल नथला, सो यू कैन ईदर टेक अवे फैसिलिटी अंडर पीएमएवाई, जदि प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना अंडर रे तुमन आसी नै ना, then you can be recommended and you can avail housing under affordable housing for rural areas under BPGY. Okay. Similarly, can you say ki which scheme ko scheme line eta madhubabu pension yojana hai? Any idea? Atal pension, जेटा national social security program ना, आगु जोटा इग्नो एप्स को आउतला इंदिरा गांधी नेशनल ओल्ड एज पेंशन स्कीम, तार बहुत सारा कंपोनेंट थिला, विडो मान को पई थिला, नॉर्मल ओल्ड एज पीपल मान को पई थिला, सेही वाला तो सेही स्कीम रु जो माने बळी होछंती तांका पई एटा मधुबाबू पेंशन योजना हिच एमबीपीवाई। ओके, तो या अंडर 5 ना जोन दोचन 60 to 79, चलो वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू गो इनटू डिटेल किए केते दोछि दी
क्राइटेरिया नै ना, माने समस्त को मिलछि
एमबीपीवाई ना, एमबीपीवाई रे भी क्राइटेरिया अछि ना, क्राइटेरिया अछि 60 to 79 इयर्स ओल्ड जेमती गोटा अछि, माने एज रिलेटेड क्राइटेरिया अछि, गोटे क्राइटेरिया अछि
माने किछि गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट की इनफॉर्मल समथि किछि नै, समस्त 65 समस्त को मिलछि।
हाँ, if you come under any of the criteria, for example, if you are what am the AIDS patient, even they can avail. Okay, if you have any, you are victim of any natural disaster, then also you can avail. Okay. So these are, you have to fulfill, you have to be eligible under any category. तो तार गोटे लिस्ट अछि 6-7 टा एमतिया कोन ये अछि, that is not required.
ओके,
देखि तो 6-7 टा पॉइंट अछि, not a single criteria, 6-7 टा पॉइंट अछि, main is the age related criteria. BPGY mo kude ame discuss kolu is the affordable rural housing, affordable housing for rural areas, affordable housing scheme. This is in line with Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Similar ho. Nirman Shramik Pakka Ghar Yojana. This is specifically for construction workers. जेमती आमे नॉर्मल लोकन पई बीपीजीवाई मो कुडे अछि ना, स्पेसिफिकली से कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स मानकर तांको निज घर तयारी करिया पई ओन हाउसिंग पई, हाउसेस पई से माने पैसा दउतले 1 lakh around, I think, just slightly lower than BPGY. Odisha livelihood mission, this is related to livelihood. Livelihood means this is different from salary or anything. Livelihood means जो सारा माने occupation through रे you can earn something to spend, माने not even subsistence, which is more than subsistence but less than salary. Okay, it is not formal, माने in that sense में formal sector से समझे income कुछ करियर नहीं, but you can, for example, you can earn from, if you are doing some uh, cottage industry. Okay, if you are minor forest produce ସେଥିରେ value addition କରୁଛ, okay, all of these will come under textile industry. All of these can come under Odisha livelihood mission. Okay. Again, can you tell me under this is similar to which central scheme? NRLM and NULM, National Rural Livelihood Mission and National Urban Livelihood Mission. The full form is Deen Dayal Upadhyay Antyodaya Yojana. Sorry, day ର full form कौन थला? Deen Dayal Upadhyay Day NULM and Day NRLM ना. Deen Dayal Upadhyay something, I don't remember. Antyodaya तो no, sorry. BSKY, Biju Swasthya Kalyan Yojana card. Mission Shakti, you can write about women empowerment. This is more related to women self-help groups. You can write about Mission Shakti cafes. Okay. You can write about Mission Shakti scooter scheme, recent scooter scheme. State food security scheme. This is to complement National Food Security Act under PDS. Ahar Kendras, where they are giving 5 rupee meals. Okay. And finally, Mukhyamantri Karma Tatpara Abhiyan or Mukta scheme. Mukta was on urban wage employment scheme. Actually, this is based on NREGS, but the point is NREGS is on for rural areas. Similar to NREGS, people were demanding for a NUEGA, National Urban Employment Guarantee Act. But point is this act, the urban this is not available till now. But based on this concept, Odisha has started this thing Mukta, Mukhyamantri Karma Tatpara Abhiyan. ଯେତେବେଳେ COVID-19 ने बहुत सारा माइग्रेंट वर्कर्स मैंने रिटर्न कले ओडिशा को, गवर्नमेंट रियलाइज कि वी नीड टू प्रोवाइड देम एम्प्लॉयमेंट एंड मेनी ऑफ देम वर आल्सो लिविंग इन द सिटीज. सो चलो पॉइंट होची कि देखो रूरल एरिया जो तांको एनआरजीएस रे देई हो काम, बट अर्बन एरिया जो अर्बन पोर अछंती तांको पई किछि स्पेसिफिक स्कीम नथला. सो फॉर देम ओडिशा गवर्नमेंट स्टार्टेड दिस मुक्ता स्कीम. इट्स अ वेरी गुड स्कीम एंड यू कैन आल्सो राइट इन माने वे फॉरवर्ड रे आल्सो यू कैन गिव एग्जांपल कि जो कांसेप्ट रेकमेंड कराउतला आगु नुएगा करिया पई National Urban Employment Guarantee Act करिया पई, and which has not happened till now. Odisha government has taken a step to introduce the similar concept. Okay. So any doubts so far? किसी डाउट अच्छे थी पचारो? No. मैं बहुत फास्ट जाऊँ वो स्लो जाऊँ? Give me some feedback. Or is it fine?
Fine, sir.
Okay.
Fine, sir.
Okay. ठीक है. So then let us move to next topic. आज ये content heavy class अच्छी. Okay, so जदि केतेबेले मते मने पकवा टाइम रे, okay, 7:45-50 आडू will take a break because it is a content heavy class, so people feel कि information overload बेले बेले लागे. So it's okay. By the way, now तो एबे तो content बेसी नहीं, एबे concept आसीगला. Let us try to see कि what is the reason for unemployment and poverty in Odisha in general, some generic points. Okay. Next we will go to regional disparity in Odisha. So before that we are first seeing what is the reasons for unemployment and poverty. So unemployment and poverty rest प्रथमे आसे legacy issues. या माने कौन, can anyone tell me what is the meaning of legacy issue? Legacy issue term
intergenerational poor जो बने को
sorry कौन clear सुना वाला नहीं. कौन कहला तो repeat करो.
सब जो लिकेज रे आसिबरियो कि जे जो माने intergenerational poor माने से माने they are in the poverty cycle for many generations.
माने very simply historical issues.
Sir, colonial times the drought hitla.
Yes, yes. କୋଉ drought ହେଇଥିଲା, can anyone tell me? Which drought?
ନଅଙ୍କ ଦୁର୍ଭିକ୍ଷ।
Sorry, drought with famine. No.
ନଅଙ୍କ ଦୁର୍ଭିକ୍ଷ.
Yes.
So in general, if you see, Odisha has a issue of famine, natural disasters. Next point review is natural disasters. These are all legacy issues. Also, you can say mistreatment or lack of support from the center. So mistreatment or lack of support of the central government. So these are all legacy issues, means historical issues. So due to this historical underdevelopment, India is currently also ତାର impact ଏବେ ବି ପଡୁଛି ବୋଲି ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ. For example, if you see, on the other hand, if you see, states like West Bengal, states like Maharashtra, why they are so developed? Is it just because इनका ଲୋକମାନେ ବହୁତ hardworking and all? Not just because of that. The major reason was that colonial time ରୁ they also got a lot of resources. ଯେତେବେଳେ initially British government ଆସିକି establish କଲା first କୋଲକାତାରେ, then ବମ୍ବେରେ, then ଅନ୍ୟ ସବୁ ଏମିତି ଆଜିର ଯୋଉ ଯାହା ବି metro city ହେଇଛି ତାର ହବାର reason କଣ? Those were the areas which were first colonized by the Britishers. But on the other hand, Odisha was only part of Bengal itself. Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, all three were part of one province. And even in that province, it was the domination of Bengalis. So this is also an example of legacy issue. तो ମୁଁ by the way କିଛି ବି ସବୁ ଜିନିଷ କିଛି ବି explain କରିବା ଦରକାର ନାହିଁ, just write one point legacy issues, historical issues like famine, natural disasters, something. Okay, ଗୋଟେ line ରେ ଲେଖିବ, ବେଶୀ କିଛି explain କରିବା ଦରକାର ନାହିଁ. Examiner will understand what you are trying to say. Natural
Sir?
disasters, yes.
हाँ सर, जस्ट ଗୋଟେ डाउट कि जो कॉलोनियल टाइम रे ना माने ओडिशा कोस्ट रे भी किछि किछि पोर्ट्स माने डेवलप करले बट से माने तो कंटिन्यू करेनी माने ता रीजन कोन?
ମୁଁ ବି ଜାଣିନି यार,
ओके
continue କଲେନି କାହିଁକି? It's a very peculiar question, so I have no idea. But can you tell me which port you are talking about?
सर बालेश्वर रे तो तारो गो मासे जो थिंक बरहमपुर कोस्ट रे भी किछि एमते डेवलप करथिले मोर एग्जैक्टली मन नै एबे बट मु पढ़
Okay, historical reason ହିଁ ହେଇଥିବ ସେଟା. I don't think any other reasons. ସେମିତି ଦେଖିବାକୁ ଗଲେ ancient history ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ସାଧବ ମାନେ ଯାଉଥିଲେ ନା ବାହାରକୁ, କାହିଁକି ସେମାନେ, ଏବେ ଆମେ କହିବା କି why Odisha doesn't have
यस
that
यस
strong
सर एटा ज्योग्राफिकल
maritime
रीजन
threat.
नहीं था कि मतलब इमर्जिंग कोस्ट रो
ହେଇଥିବ यार, ଆମେ economy ରେ ଏତେ detail I don't think you also need. But I think these are all maybe geographical and historical perspective. Okay. So rather history ରେ ସେ ସବୁ ଜିନିଷ ଆସିବ. If you see, for example, if you see most of the even medieval India ର ports ଏବେ ବି use ହଉଛି ବହୁତ ସାରା. Okay. କିନ୍ତୁ ancient India ର ସବୁ port ଗୁଡା ନାହିଁ. For example, ତାମ୍ଲୁକ ଯୋଉ, okay, ତାମ୍ରଲିପ୍ତି earlier used to be called as ତାମ୍ରଲିପ୍ତି. ତାମ୍ଲୁକ ରେ ଏବେ ସେମିତି ନାହିଁ ନା huge କଣ port infrastructure କିଛି ଅଛି. Whereas if you see Surat, here Surat ଆଉ ଏପଟେ ହଉଛି Vizag, ଆଉ ଏପଟେ କଣ north ରେ I think, sorry west ରେ ମୋର but ମୋ କହିବା କଥା କିଛି କିଛି port ଅଛନ୍ତି ଯୋଉମାନେ ଆଗରୁ develop ହେଇ ଚାଲିଥିଲେ, ଏବେ develop ମାନେ ଅଛି, ମାନେ there is a legacy continue. ନା ଗୋଟେ ଜାଗାରେ କାହିଁକି continue କଲାନି, ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଜାଗାରେ କାହିଁକି continue କଲା, maybe some historical perspective is there. So let us see what are the second point, natural disasters, droughts, cyclone, how कौन major disaster, flood. So specifically if you see, Odisha was more prone to droughts, cyclone and floods. Okay. Cyclone तो almost every year ଗୋଟେ ଆସିବାର ଥାଏ. So this is also, and natural disaster will have huge impact on the economy. So this is one of the main issues. Now this is a technical point, federal structure କେମିତି ଗୋଟେ issue ଓଡ଼ିଶାର unemployment and poverty ପାଇଁ. ଏଥିରେ issue ହଉଛି କି ଦେଖ ମାଇନ୍ସ ହଉଛି ଦୁଇ ଟାଇପ ର ଅଛି, ଗୋଟେ ହଉଛି major mines, ଗୋଟେ ହଉଛି minor mines. Now this is a prelim stuff, but let me just clear it in very short form. Actually major mines और minor mines ଦୁଇ type ର categorization ହେଇଛି. Government of India will actually define major mines କଣ, ତ ସେ ଗୋଟେ list ଦେଇଛି, these all are major mines. Okay, sorry, government will say minor mines is under state government. Okay, and major mines are all under central government. So government will say कि major mines जहाँ जहाँ अच्छी, which are the major mines, for example gold, for example even coal, all the important mines you will see will come under major mines. So minor mines कोउडा, sand, gravel, okay, morum, एगुड़ा सब minor mines. Now central government कौन करछि एमितिया ताको डिजाइन करछि कि माइनर माइन को दे दी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को मेजर निज पाखरे रखिछि ता माने कोन स्टेट जहाँ टैक्सेशन भी करियो यूजुअली माइनर माइन्स ऊपर करियो तार माने प्रोसीड्स गुडा जहाँ पे बाहरियो से केते भी बाहरियो you think gold coal it type of major mines even different type of radioactive minerals or critical minerals you think these are more important things government of india directly ଏଟାକୁ appropriate କରୁଛି तो state ପାଖରେ ଯଦି less amount ର ଅଛି less valuable mines ଅଛି then that means କି state ପାଖକୁ less revenue ଯାଉଛି so that is one reason କି ଆମର revenue କମ ଅଛି the point is major mines ବି ଓଡ଼ିଶାରେ ବହୁତ ଅଛି for example even bauxite all of these are major mines but we are not able to get the most of the benefit out of it. On the other hand, Odisha रे both forest भी अछि, but forest comes under concurrent list. If you remember 42nd constitutional amendment रे तीनटा topic आस्थिला state list to concurrent list to तीनटा subject matter. Forest was one of them. So that means that center and state both can legislate, but if center will legislate, then it will supersede the state legislation. So many of the legislation, if you see, the centralizing tendency of the Forest Acts is due to because that was done by the parliament, not by the state legislature. So due to these reasons, state will have most of the responsibilities will be with the state, but most of the power will be with the center. Okay. So is this not a reason for unemployment and poverty? We can say that maybe Odisha ପାଖରେ ଯଦି ସେତିକି resource ଯାହା resource ଅଛି ତାକୁ ଯଦି ଆମେ ହିଁ harness କରିପାରୁଥାନ୍ତେ ସେଇଥିରୁ ଆମେ ହିଁ major profit ନେଇ ପାରୁଥାନ୍ତେ ତାହେଲେ ଆମେ ଆମ ଉପରେ ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରିଥାନ୍ତେ. The criticism is that center is taking away most of the value. Although let me tell you something, practically that is not a very good type of reasoning, but it is you can argue that due to this kind of lopsided or biased federal structure is also one of the reasons. Now this point is very important. Populism, charity or revenue culture. Recently जो prime minister कहली कि revenue culture means what? All freebies, free रे सब जिनिस दबा और huge subsidy रे सब जिनिस दबा. Odisha government for a long time, even though center was taking most of the part was being subsidized by the center, then state ସେଥିରେ କିଛି ପଇସା add କରିକି ସେଟାକୁ 1 kg per rice କରିକି ବିକ୍ରି କରୁଥିଲେ. तो या द्वारा ମୁଁ तुमକୁ କହିଥିଲି ଗୋଟେ କଥା कि ଗୋଟେ state और center ପାଖରେ ଦୁଇଟା option ଅଛି. Either there will be populism or there will be jobs. It cannot be both. So if the most of the public money is being spent on populism, then there will be less number of jobs. So as simple as that. So we are paying an opportunity cost. Okay. Specifically, the highly intelligent and highly educated people, we are the ones who are getting opportunity cost in the sense कि हमें पाठ पढ़ी कि हम पाखरे जॉब नहीं. Whereas जे पाठ न पढ़ियो, जे गरीब ହେଇକି ରହିବ, for some reason who is who for by their own choice. I'm not saying if you don't have any choice, then that's not the criticism. But by choice, if you are poor because you want to avail this kind of populist schemes, then that means the opportunity cost is actually borne by the other section of the people. So this is one of the main reasons for poverty and unemployment in Odisha. Now you can write about tribal dominated districts. Odisha रे बहुत सारा tribal dominated district अछि. This is also one of the reasons why they are poor. Many of the KVK districts, Mayurbhanj, Keonjhar, etc. By the way, this is not a controversial association. एमती भाबनी कि सर आमे केमती कहया कि tribal है level is poor. This is a very well known. There is a link between poverty and level of socio-economic status. Okay. So in general, it is seen that even within, if you see ST, SC, OBC, it is also very well known fact कि ST रे level of incidence of poverty is highest. तापरे ताठो टिके लो SC रे ताठो आउ लो OBC रे ता general सबुठु कम. So this is a very well known concepts you can write, no issues. Then you can write about left wing extremism. Left wing extremism affected areas means जोटा usually हमको Maoism or Naxalism. Most of these districts को district जाए जानचो अनुगुल भी एथरे आसुची कोरापुट मालकानगिरी. These are the hotbeds and some other parts of western and southern Odisha. So if there are जो जोटी Maoist Naxalist रहिले सेठी development करियाटा difficult. This is also an argument. Now this is one of the most important points ମାନେ unfortunately ମୁଁ ପଛରେ ଏଟା ଲେଖିଲି, but you should write it maybe in number 2 or number 3 ଏଟା ଲେଖିବା ହେଲା, lack of industrial development. very important topic. ଓଡ଼ିଶାରେ କାହିଁକି lack of industrial development ଅଛି? These are all generic points. Okay, କଣ lack କଣ ଅଛି ନା, ଆମେ raw material କୁ extract କରିକି usually directly export କରିଦଉଛୁ without doing any value addition or processing. So ଆମେ raw material को निजे process କରିକି एठी यदि produce goods and produces develop goods ମାନେ एठी produce करन्ते ताले हमको बेसी profit मिलंदा. But what we are doing ki, for example iron ore को तमे सस्ता रे directly जापान को export कर दोछ. But if you use this to produce steel in Odisha, then its value would be higher and then you will get more out of it. But हमरो problem कोन, हमको factory बसेयार नै, हमें directly यदि बाहर करी खोली दे देले ताले संगे संगे short term रे हमको पैसा मिल जाउछ. This is the criticism. It's not as easy as that. By the way, ସେଥିରେ ବହୁତ ସାରା issue ଅଛି. Factory କାହିଁକି ବସି ପାରୁନି ତାର ବି problem ବହୁତ ଅଛି. But this is one point you can say कि raw material extraction and export without value addition. Next point is number of industrial belts in Odisha is very less. कलिंगनगर industrial complex ଗୋଟେ ଅଛି, ମୟୂରଭଞ୍ଜ କେଉଁଝର belt ଗୋଟେ ଅଛି, ପାରାଦୀପ ଧାମରା. Okay, these are means ଏମିତି sporadic area ରେ ମାନେ ଟିକେ ଛାଡି ଛାଡି scattered ହେଇକି ଅଛି, ଏମିତି continuously ଏମିତି belt ନାହିଁ. For example ଯେମିତି ଆମର ଛୋଟନାଗପୁର ପ୍ଲାଟୋଟାରେ ଯୋଉଟା ପୁରା ଯୋଉ ରାଞ୍ଚି ଛତିଶଗଡ଼ ଏଇଟା ହେଇକି ଯୋଉଟା ଯାଇଛି ସେଇ ପ୍ଲାଟୋଟାରେ ଅଛି. ବାଇ ଦ ୱେ ତା ଭିତରୁ ଗୋଟେ ଲାଇନ ଆସିକି ମୟୂରଭଞ୍ଜ କେଉଁଝର ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ବି ଲାଗିଛି. ବଟ୍ ଓଡ଼ିଶାରେ ସେମିତିଆ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରିଆଲ ବେଲ୍ଟ କମ୍ପ୍ଲିଟଲି ବହୁତ ବେଶୀ ଡେଭଲପ ହେଇନାହିଁ. and the reason for that, acha industrial belt kahinki haba darkar, the one word you can write ki industrial belt hele there will be an agglomeration effect. eta kai padicho geography re padicho I think agglomeration effect. Can anyone tell me what this means?
Sir, agglomeration effect means the like one party consuming the output of another party, and again the chain goes on. For example, in case of iron, like if someone is producing raw iron, then one more processing unit will set up on the basis of input from this industry. Then again one more will come,
Right,
which will be taking the output of the.
right.
Sir, how
So
would
the point
better
is,
bargaining भी कर पाएंगे and better price भी पाई पाएंगे.
हाँ, agglomeration effect होची कि यार बहुत सिंपल क्रूड वे रे हाउ टू एक्सप्लेन सी, गोटे जगह यदि को भी टाइप रो गोटे सेक्टर रो और गोटे टाइप रो किछि गोटे इंडस्ट्री और किछि गोटे टाइप रो बिजनेस अछि ना, बर्तमान सेही एरिया रे सेही बिजनेस को एक्सपैंड करियाटा इजियर होई जाय, बिकॉज़ सेठी सब तार सेटिंग हे जिवो. बुझछ, सपोज तुमे देखि दियो, इवन यू वुड हैव नोटिस्ड इन योर ओन टाउन मार्केट, गोटे जगह रे कोन होबी, गोटे रे स्टील हार्डवेयर जिंस अछि माने सेठी लाइन ने 3-4टा थी, गोटे जगह मॉल अछि माने लाइन ने 2-3टा मॉल थिवो, गोटे जगह सपोज आउ कोन आउ डिफरेंट टाइप रो किछि गोटे क्लोथ स्टोर अछि लाइन ने थिवो और सेही आख पाखरे थिवो. व्हाट इज द पॉइंट? पॉइंट इज कि वंस गोटे एस्टाब्लिश हे जिवो 2-3टा सिटी शॉप कि बिजनेस किंबा industrial units, then it's gradually becomes easier for other similar kind of units to establish there, because धीरे धीरे से supply chain टा city establish हो. The second thing, now it is also easier for the consumers and to buy from there, because a competitive competition है कि price भी drop करियो टिके. So people know that they are getting good quality out of one area. तो तुम आमे एमती भाबु ना, अरे हमको हार्डवेयर आनियर अछि यदि आमे मार्क टाउन रो एई जगह को जिबार अछि, जदि क्लोथ्स किनियार अछि ताले टाउन रो और सिटी रो एई जगह को जिबार अछि. So that is in very simple form, that is the agglomeration effect. Now ओडिसा रो इशू हला कि बिकॉज़ हमरो सेमती डेवलप्ड इंडस्ट्रियल बेल्ट नाही, तेनो agglomeration effect ता very very low अछि. तो once गोटे अगर agglomeration effect हवा स्टार्ट करियो, then से जगह फर्दर it will continue to grow. Okay. Similarly, lack of private investment. ना हमें देखिया कि what is the meaning of lack of private investment ओडिसा रे काहेकि हो नाही. Okay. So this is the one of the most important things where you can link कि private investment काहेकि हो नाही, because of development versus displacement issue or ecology issue. And here you can talk about Vedanta alumina case, नियमगिरी रे जोटा ହେଇଥିଲା. So जो डोंगरिया कंध माने समान को जमी एक्वायर करिया को देले नहीं, because नियमगिरी hill was for them, it was god. Okay, Mahaprabhu. So for that they did not allow them, and this also related या द्वारा कौन होगा ना, business sentiment खराब हो. So now business owners or enterprises, they will think that your government is not pro business, you are pro people, you are not pro business. So now we are not talking about ethical issue here. Okay, GS4 रे तुम्हें ethical analysis करी कहयो कि नहीं ट्राइबल माने भी ठीक development भी हमारा अच्छी middle ground हमारा. Here in GS3 paper you have to just write a point. One point you can write a development versus displacement issue. Okay. Agricultural sector issue. In general agricultural sector जहाँ जहाँ issue अच्छी you can briefly mention कर दो. Input to start करी जो farm mechanization कथा. Then output finally जो value addition and marketing. Okay. मझिरे एठी आसीबो farm mechanization, access to, for example यहाँ under आसीबो access to credit, access to fertilizer, all of pesticides, all of these things. एठी value addition कथा लिख परियो, lack of value addition, transport, generic points, whatever you want you can write. आमे लिखे कि ए सब इशू भी ओडिसा रे अछि. One of the main issues of Odisha farming, the main issue is farm mechanization. Actually, level of farm mechanization in Odisha is one of the lowest. Similarly, low levels of human resources development. You can write about education, healthcare, skill development. Good example like literacy level of Odisha and India is the difference. Simply देखिया बोले 1 percentage point रो difference अछि, but ठीक अछि. Here rather this statistics is better. That 2% of adult population in Odisha have some formal vocational training. Only 2%. So National Skill Development Committee, Commissioner report 2018. So that means कि आमर ओडिसा रो human resources development रो level बहुत low अछि. And actually if you see HRD will directly impact tertiary sector the most. Services sector को direct impact पड़ियो. To some extent secondary sector रे भी importance अछि, माने impact पड़ियो, but most importance will be on tertiary or services sector. Bureaucratic issues, generic point you can write about red tapeism. Okay, single window clearance नहीं, ये सब जिनिस लिखें. Okay. So next we'll go to regional disparity in Odisha. Before that, if you have any doubts, please ask. Reasons for unemployment and poverty in Odisha.
सर कौन कहले रेड टापिज्म कौन कहले सर सेटा
रेड टेपिज्म सिंपल होची कि रेड टेप टर्म आछि नाली फिता हम ओडिया रे कहन नाली फिता तळे चापी होची लोकंकर दाबी समथिंग लाइक दैट मींस गवर्नमेंट फाइल भितरे तमरो सब माने गवर्नमेंट फाइल माने कोन बहुत ही स्लो प्रोसेसिंग हुए ना बेले बेले टोटली प्रोसेसिंग होबो ही नहीं कोठी मूवमेंट टोटली करियो नहीं तो या द्वारा कौन होबो कि तुम्हारा एंटायर प्रोजेक्ट सपोज यू आर प्रोजेक्ट डेवलपर यू हैव अप्लाइड फॉर सम मे बी क्लियरेंस तुम क्लियरेंस मिलु नहीं तो तुम बिजनेस सेटअप करि परनो. Similarly red tapeism by the way you can also write another term, very nice term. This term nowadays it is being called as regulatory cholesterol. Regulatory cholesterol जेमती आमर कोलेस्टेरोल कोन ब्लड सप्लाई को बंद कर दिए सेमती रेगुलेटरी बॉडी जदी प्रोजेक्ट गुडा को बंद कर दो धीरे धीरे और माने फास्टर क्लियरेंस जदी न मिलियो ताको कोआ होचे रेगुलेटरी कोलेस्टेरोल. ता माने होची सपोज यू आर अ बिजनेस यू हैव अप्लाइड फॉर मे बी सम काइंड ऑफ अप्रूवल तुम बिजनेस सेटअप करे में अप्रूवल करछो सेटा को गवर्नमेंट बहुत टाइम नउची ताको अप्रूवल दो सो दैट विल बी कॉल्ड रेड टेपिज्म. यू कैन आल्सो कॉल इट एज रेगुलेटरी कोलेस्टेरोल.
ओके सर
इकोनॉमिक सर्वे रो एटा टर्म गोटे पढिथिले भलो टर्म रे. Okay, so let us start regional disparity टिके start कर दो then we'll take a break. Okay, regional disparity in Odisha सब वर्ष almost गोटे question आसियो directly or indirectly, so let us see what this means. We had talked about poverty and unemployment in general in Odisha. Now something linked to this also कि level of development केते अछि within Odisha. This is in general, in overall in Odisha. This is कि Odisha भितरे different areas रे केते level of development अछि. So regional disparity means कि different area रे केते level of development अछि. So this difference in economic growth and human development in different parts of a state or a country. See, regional disparity can also be in India. They can also ask regional disparity in India विषय लेखो. But जेहेतु आमो syllabus रे specifically mention अछि regional disparity in Odisha, so we are taking up this part. माने ओडिशा भितर डिफरेंट डिफरेंट डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स रे केते लेवल ऑफ डेवलपमेंट अछि. So if you want to divide in that way कि ओडिशा टा whether which part is more developed, which is less developed, there is a relative inequality between two kinds of districts. आमे कहया किसी richer district अछंती किसी poorer district अछंती. So how are they divided? एमितिया सब डिविजन अछि. मन रखो आंसर लिखला बेले you can माने स्टार्टिंग रे तुमे भी ए जिंसडा डिविजन विषय भी लिखि पारो. अदरवाइज कोन हो किछि पिला एग्जैक्टली जान न थांती को डिस्ट्रिक्ट अछि. समस्त खाली लिखि देबे केबीके डिस्ट्रिक्ट नहले वेस्टर्न ओडिशा एमितिया लिखि देबे. ओके, but in this kind of in this topics you have to be a bit more specific because you are supposed to in general देखो अन्य part रे you can just write about KBK districts, but here you should write maybe कि कौन district आसुची ये ए way रे भी you can introduce. Otherwise you can also simply introduce with what is the meaning of regional disparity. So 8टा KBK district अछि, 3टा northern district अछि. Okay, this is the SK Mahanti commission भी एटा ए way रे से differentiate करथिले. So initially if you see KBK district कहले ये तीनटा district आसुला कलाहांडी बलांगीर कोरापुट. But now KBK district रो scope टाकू expand करिकी आउ 5टा district भी add कराइछि. Now KBK district also means नुआपड़ा, सोनपुर, मालकानगिरी, नवरंगपुर, रायगढ़. So these are, if you see, these are the southwestern districts of Odisha. So SK Mahanti commission has said that is माने southwestern Odisha को ସେମାନେ गोटे नेइछन्ती, गोटे होछि northern districts or northern Odisha, then other districts जोड़ा relatively more developed. Northern district होते जोड़ा poorer district specifically तीनटा अछि मयूरभंज, केउंझर, सुंदरगढ़. And if you see the richer districts खोर्धा, कटक, संबलपुर, गंजाम. आ बाकी जो districts गुड़ा अछि mid range रे आछन्ती. So this is the division. Now this commission was set up by Odisha government to evaluate or to examine what is the level of regional disparity in Odisha specifically. Regional disparity ऊपर ही बसथिला. तेणु regional disparity ऊपर क्वेश्चन आसले must write this. बहुत सारा पिलांकर आंसर भी आगु देखि छी माने किछि मेंशन स्पेसिफिक जिंस किछि लेखन खाली एमतिया लिखि जंते हां वेस्टर्न ओडिशा इज लेस डेवलप्ड. So please write some specific points. Okay, so this commission said कि एटा हम देखिलु दुईटा कैटेगरी से डिवाइड कर देले southern, southwestern और northern districts. Now they said कि these type of districts are facing relatively higher levels of backwardness. And relatively higher levels of backwardness को term रे ना economic backwardness, it can be human development related backwardness, it can be infrastructure related backwardness. So economic माने poverty and income based, per capita income. Human development means access to healthcare, education, water and sanitation, and infrastructure means different types of connectivity, communication, power. Okay, so economic, human development and infrastructure. Now we will see in detail what are the different, either we will also see what are the recommendations given by this commission. This commission also gave some recommendations, but first we will see what
कौन लिखा है इतना?
per capita income.
Okay.
This is per capita income per capita. Okay, so what are the reasons or factors of regional disparity in Odisha? So they will ask you either ki briefly write about regional disparity in Odisha, but seটা बहुत ही basic ही होची. They might ask you what are the factors or what are the reasons for regional disparity in Odisha and how can we counter it. So first की poverty related हमें poverty और unemployment related जहाँ factor देखिए ना, से सब generic factor also you can write, but apart from that you can write some specific factors for regional disparity. Okay, poverty ପାଇଁ जो factor हबो, से same factor उड़ा हबनी कि regional disparity. The point is कि से same factor अन्य district रे भी अछि, but एई जो किछि backward more backward district अछि सेतरे बेसी अछि से factor उड़ा. That is the argument. And what are the other reasons that you are going to write specific to regional disparity? First you write कि there is geographical isolation of certain districts. Just specifically जो माने either in terms of terrain or topography, either in terms of away from the capital माने टिके periphery रे अछंती, आउ किछि कोन पूरा border area रे अछंती. Border area माने interstate border area. So for example terrain or topography माने कोन एमती forest type रो area अछि, किछि barren land अछि. For example कलाहांडी टा barren land बहुत अछि. Forest कोन कोरापुट अछि, मालकानगिरी अछि. Away from the capital, districts like Nabrangpur, districts like Sonpur, चलो सोनपुर भी तो टिके रिलेटिवली पाखरे अछि बट आर यू एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड माने कैपिटल टू दूर हबो पर कैपिटल दूर संगे अंडर डेवलपमेंट काहे की हबो हमें ता पछ पर पॉइंट रा गोटे देखिया ओके रीजनल मार्जिनलाइजेशन रे देखिया देन बॉर्डर एरियाज कोन इंटर स्टेट बॉर्डर रे जो गुडा किछि डिस्ट्रिक्ट छडा अछन फॉर एग्जांपल मालकानगिरी फॉर एग्जांपल कोरापुट दे फेस सम ओन चैलेंजेस यार पॉइंट भी गोटा सेपरेट पॉइंट रे देखि देन अगेन अच्छा ये पॉइंट हम कवर करथिले एथरे लेफ्ट विंग एक्सट्रीमिज्म और माओइज्म दिस इज आल्सो समटाइम्स नोन एज रेड कॉरिडोर रेड कॉरिडोर इज a corridor or contiguous zone of elderly affected districts in India. So एथिरे यदि if you look at carefully ओडिसा रो किछि किछि डिस्ट्रिक्ट गुडा या अंडर रे आस को डिस्ट्रिक्ट या अंडर आस देखा होछि मयूरभंज केउंझर देवगढ़ संबलपुर सोनपुर बलांगीर नुआपड़ा कलाहांडी कंधमाल रायगड़ा गजपति देन तळको आसी नवरंगपुर कोरापुट मालकानगिरी ये सब गुडा आस ओके नाउ इफ यू सी किछि एथरो स्टेट सॉरी किछि डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोन ओडिसा रो अछि किछि तारो नेबरिंग तो दीज आर कंटिग्युअस आर यू एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड बर्तन गोटे इनसाइड नोटिस करो यूजुअली जो गुडा देखो स्टेट रो इंटर स्टेट बॉर्डर गुडा रे बेसी से प्रॉब्लम होछि देखो मझी रे एठी किछि प्रॉब्लम नै नाउ दिस पार्ट इफ यू सी दिस इज द ओडिशा और छत्तीसगढ़ रो बॉर्डर एरिया एटा होछि छत्तीसगढ़ और मध्य प्रदेश रो बॉर्डर एरिया एटा होछि ओडिशा आंध्र प्रदेश रो बॉर्डर एरिया सो बॉर्डर एरियाज गुडा रे बेसी से मानकर प्रॉब्लम हुए ना हु कैन टेल मी व्हाट इज द रीजन बॉर्डर एरिया रे काहे की बेसी प्रॉब्लम हो
The responsibility किए नबा तांको भितरे पाइटे कि
yes excellent माने there will be a lack of coordination between responsibility no माने exactly what is the point is there is a lack of coordination between security forces बर्तमान ओडिशा पुलिस कोन ताको चेस करिकी पुलिस चलो पुलिस तो चेस करिवेनी स्पेसिफिक हमरो डेडिकेटेड टास्क फोर्स भी ता ऊपर अछि सपोज दे आर चेजिंग माओइस्ट ने बेजे के आंध्र प्रदेश लुचेल ना दे हैव टू माने कम्युनिकेट विथ आंध्र प्रदेश तो आंध्र प्रदेश गवर्नमेंट ताकर ग्रे हाउंड डिवीजन को यदि छाडला देन दे हैव टू कोऑर्डिनेट सो दिस इज द रीजन इवन माओइस्ट अंडरस्टैंड दिस वेरी वेल सो सेमाने कोन करंती ताकर मेजर ऑपरेटिंग एरिया जोडा होची सेही भले एरिया not only which is hilly or forested area but also those area which are difficult for the state to control okay so that includes the border areas then tribal dominated or forested areas we have discussed this and this point also regionalism chapter I am discuss करथिले socio-cultural disparity and growth of regionalism coastal state रो एठी एग्जांपल दे दो जो ब्लू कलर एरिया टा को समने डिमांड करछन कोस्टल स्टेट रो करिवे जेतला सोशियो कल्चरल डिस्पैरिटी चलो डिस्पैरिटी इज नॉट द राइट टर्म सोशियो कल्चरल डिफरेंसेस रादर सोशियो कल्चरल डिफरेंसेस जेतले बेसी जाय किछि डिस्ट्रिक्ट रो so they will also there will be an increase of regionalism regionalist sentiments and that would lead to lack of developmental activity because mane kon hobo there will be animosity between different sections of people in the same state so suppose the coastal people they are in power सो ସେମାନେ ଦେଖିଲେ କି ଏଠି ବେଶୀ ରିଜନାଲିଜମ ବେଶୀ ଚାଲିଛି ସେମାନେ କାହିଁକି ସେଠି ଏତେ ଫଣ୍ଡ ଏତେ ବଜେଟ ରେ ଆଲୋକେशन କାହିଁକି କରିବେ ହେଲା that is the argument in any case please take a break we will meet after 5 minutes Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
तो कौन प्रॉब्लम हो पचार एनी डाउट सो फार नम्रता शुभश्री रश्मिता वर्षा वर्षा you are attending classes regularly I see don't ask too many questions anyone बुझी होची तो by the way uh, today I will have to leave a bit earlier ठीक अछि मोर टे काम अछि but whatever is left I think ये first chapter रो जो growth and development chapter आउ गोटे ही खाली क्लास हो ସେଥିରେ ଆମେ ପ୍ଲାନିଂ ଆଉ ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କିଙ୍ଗ ଏଇ ଦୁଇଟା ସାରିଦବା ଆଉ ଦୁଇଟା ହିଁ ଟପିକ୍ ଅଛି ବଡ଼ ବଡ଼ ଟପିକ୍ ତାପରେ ଯାହା ବି ଟପିକ୍ ଅଛି ସେ ପ୍ରାୟ ଗୋଟେ କ୍ଲାସରେ ଗୋଟେ ଟପିକ୍ କି ଇଭେନ୍ ଦୁଇଟା ଟପିକ୍ ବି ଗୋଟେ କ୍ଲାସରେ ସରିଯିବ ରିଲେଟିଭଲି ସ୍ମଲର ଟପିକ୍ସ ଏଲପିଜି रिफॉर्म्स ସେ ଯୋଉ लैंड रिफॉर्म्स ये सब टॉपिक गुड़ा ओके ठीक है सो लेट मी शेयर माय स्क्रीन स्क्रीन दिखाओ so ये टॉपिक टा आज सारी की हमें will end our class a bit earlier okay कोड ये इतने जाए कहते right okay can anyone tell me what is the meaning of regionalism regionalism chapter पढ़ाई जी कौन कहते कार मन अच्छे what is the meaning of regionalism anyone
Sir, a strong sense of loyalty towards your local region.
very good only that
ଗୋଟେ
तुम strong
specific area to mention କରାଯାଇଥିଲା ଏଠି।
okay now in the
Sir, in a
earlier
negative
definition
sense, sir,
Mhm.
in a negative sense, it can culminate towards hatred for other region people and xenophobia.
okay एते भी extreme माने हम definition से extreme जिनिस लिखने we are only saying कि okay you have strong loyalty to your local region but you should add in preference over a national or subnational or state level region okay. that is something how to mention कि that is in preference over or at the cost of your national or state level the problem is कि देखो तुम तुम region को भल पाउछ କିଛି असुविधा नहीं problem होची जतले तुम कहउछ कि मो region भलो अन्य region माने भलो नु or in that way if you are treating people from those areas so that is when it leads to regionalism and regionalism when that escalates that leads to separatism or secessionism तापरे last house is secessionism जब हमने country रू बाहर secede करिया को try करी anyway so society रे पढ़ाई थला society रे by the way छोटिया topic जो तीनटा अछि जोटा हम सारे तो आके बोटे maybe or I will just give you handout also population I think गोटे आ गोटे tribes अछि ना tribes of Odisha okay let us see distress migration the point is ଆମେ ଏଟା discuss କରୁଛି କି what are the causes or factors for regional development sorry regional disparity in Odisha and distress migration is one of the important factors specifically in western Odisha now what is the meaning of this thing distress migration इंडिया ना कहीं की दिया distress migration why is it not called only migration
So migration, especially due to push factors.
no it can also be pull factor no? Why specifically due to push factors migration can be you are going towards the right thing तुम टिके आंसर कर टिके एफर्ट कर दला फिर सब push and pull factors you are saying rather what you are I think what you are trying to say ki only migration is due to normal migration जोटा which is due to pull factor distress migration is specifically due to some push factors like poverty push factors like
Disasters.
unemployment disasters yes the point is ଆମେ ଦେଖ ଆମେ ୟାକୁ ଆହୁରି ସିମ୍ପଲ ୱେରେ ଏଇଟା ମନେ ଅଛି ପୁsh ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟର ପୁଲ୍ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟର ଆମେ ଡିସ୍କସ କରିଥିଲୁ ସୋସାଇଟିରେ ମୁଁ କହିଥିଲି ଦେଖ ସୋସାଇଟିର କ୍ଲାସ ଗୁଟା ବହୁତ ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ ଆର୍ ୟୁ ଏବୁଲ ଟୁ ଆପ୍ରିସିଏଟ ମୁଁ କହିଥିଲି କି ସୋସାଇଟିର କ୍ଲାସ ଗୁଟା ଏତେ ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ ୟୁ କ୍ୟାନ୍ ରାଇଟ୍ ଦେମ୍ ଇନ୍ GS1 GS2 GS3 ସବୁଥିରେ ତମେ ଲେଖିପାରିବ ଏସେ ଏଥିକ୍ସ ସବୁଥିରେ ଲେଖିପାରିବ ନାଉ ରିମେମ୍ବର ଆମେ ଏଗୁଡ଼ା କଥା ହେଇଥିଲୁ ପୁsh ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟର ଆଣ୍ଡ ପୁଲ୍ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟର ରାଇଟ୍
urbanization ରେ କଥା ହେଇଛି।
yes urbanization chapter କଥା ହେଇଥିଲୁ ସେଥିରେ ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଥିଲୁ urbanization ହଉଛି କାହିଁକି rural ରୁ urban କୁ ଏରିଆକୁ ଲୋକମାନେ ଯାଉଛନ୍ତି କାହିଁକି तो पुश फैक्टर है से फैक्टर जोटा कि तुमको रूरल एरिया रो पुश करूची पुल फैक्टर है कि जोटा अर्बन एरिया को पुल करूची टाणुची So these are negative factors, these are positive factors. Okay, so negative factors specifically जो A type रो जो very severe negative factor अच्छी, this lead to distress migration. In very simple term you can say कि distress migration होची सेई type रो migration जोटा कि तुमे by choice करूनो, you are rather doing it because out of necessity or for survival. Okay, so this kind of migration is really bad. देखो normal migration, even if you are, suppose you are born and brought up in some district of let us say Sonpur or Nabrangpur, then तुम पढ़िल भुवनेश्वर कोड इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेज रे पढ़िल, तापर तुम प्लेसमेंट हेगला टीसीएस इन्फोसिस कोड भी बैंगलोर पढ़ेलो, इवन तुमे जो गलो ओडिसा रो बैंगलोर, even that comes under migration, right? But that is not distress migration. We are happy for this kind of migration. Happy in the sense कि चलो तुमको जॉब मिलना, happy इसमें नहीं कि तुम ओडिसा छाड़ी गलो. But the point is, Western Odisha specifically जो माने migrate करूँ, they are what? They are wage laborers mostly. Okay, huge problem in Western Odisha. In fact, if you see labor office, माने both officer माने mostly posted in Western Odisha only, because to check this kind of check तो न करे, माने what is the main point is that कि Western Odisha रे हम एमती बेसी job create करी परिया, so that एमान को छाड़ी के जीवा पड़िवा नहीं. And the problem with distress migration is that कि जदि तुम distress migration करूଛ, that means you have low bargaining power. देखो यही सब जिनस गुड़ा लिखियो आंसर रे, low bargaining power means कौन, तुम यदि TCS Infosys रे posted हलो, you have bargaining power, तुम पहुंचियो सेठी landlord सागर कथा ही परियो. So suppose if he is trying to exploit you, then you can say कि simply नहीं मु एत तो रही मु आउट को जा रही. But think जो गोटे वेस्टर्न ओडिसा रो लेबरर जाउची, सूरत जाउची, अहमदाबाद जाउची, सूरत रे सपोज गोटे सूता कल रे से काम करूची, does he have any bargaining power? When he reaches there, first thing they will do ki तारो जे employer थिबो ना, they will simply take their identity card and then they will keep it with themselves. I hope you know these ground realities. देखो तुम्हें सर्विस रे जीवो, and most of your time it is likely that माने at least half of your service you will maybe uh, shifted or you'll stay in somewhere very comfortable area, ठीक है. Maybe capital city रहो, maybe कोई district headquarter रहो. But जो initial year ना, it is I really recommend कि you should work in some rural areas to understand what are the problems faced by the people. And this is the basic thing which is being faced by the migrant workers. They don't have any bargaining power. So suppose एठू कही कि तांको नहीं आइते कि suppose हमको एतिकी rate रे price तुमको दिया हो, suppose केते कहते 400 or 500 per day तुमको दिया हो. But once हम सूरत रे पहुंचन, they will be told that actually 300 per day दिया हो and एथरे भी तुमको rent तुम्हारा काटी दूंगा. So can this person now immediately return to Odisha? They cannot. So these are the different aspects, economic as well socio-economic or social aspects of distress migration. So this is one of the main reasons for regional disparity in Odisha. The problem is similar thing. If you see, देखो आउ भी गोटा पॉइंट कहूँ, माने नहीं कि केवल वेस्टर्न ओडिसा रो डिस्ट्रेस माइग्रेशन करछंती, इवन कोस्टल ओडिसा रो माइग्रेशन करछंती, बट दैट इज नॉट डिस्ट्रेस माइग्रेशन. फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू सी मेनी पीपल लोअर सोशियो इकोनॉमिक स्टेटस रो, से माने कोन करन बालेश्वर रो जाई कि यूजुअली नॉर्दर्न इंडिया को प्रेफर करन. नॉर्दर्न इंडिया फॉर एग्जांपल दिल्ली वैली रे जाई सेटल हे किसी गोटा काम काम करथांती. ओके, सम काइंड ऑफ सीजनल वर्क दे डू. ओआरएन करोलबाग तो भर्ती अछंती सो कुक्स. ओके, बट द पॉइंट इज इवन दैट इज नॉट डिस्ट्रेस माइग्रेशन. ସେମାନେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଚାହିଁବେ ସେତେବେଳେ ରିଟର୍ନ ବି କରିପାରିବେ. But ଯେ daily laborer who is going to Surat, who is going to Chennai, they don't have any bargaining power. So that kind of migration को हमें check କରିବାକୁ हमें चाहूँ. Okay. Then power disparity in Odisha. Very important point. Try to understand. Power disparity माने कौन? Regional disparity under रे गोटा आसे power disparity. Power disparity माने कौन? What is the who are the को region power centers? Who are the power centers of Odisha? In the sense कि को region. If you think from political angle, right now what is the power center? को जगह ना कोई period, which district?
Ganjam.
Very very good, very sharp you are. Okay, I expected that someone will say कि Khordha. Khordha is not the power center. Power center is Ganjam. A very obvious reason. If you see how many number of chief ministers who have been from different districts, most of the chief ministers have been from coastal or other kind of districts. Only 3 CMs in Odisha's history, they have been from Western Odisha. Only 3 chief ministers. So is that also not an example of power disparity? The disparity that comes from the fact that You have political representatives in power who have maybe some kind of preference towards their area, and that is natural. We are not criticizing anything. We are only saying that जदि बहुत सारा district एमती power center नथिबो सेथरो बाद पड़ जिवो, then the issue will be there will be a lack of flow of attention and correspondingly lack of flow of fund to those areas. Similarly, you see political representatives in power. You simply think of how many MLAs are ministers who are from western or southern Odisha. There will be less number compared to coastal Odisha. Okay. Political mobilization and state agenda. You think कि जतले state election होची, सेतले usually जो issue गुड़ा raise होची, or even normal time रे, non election time रे भी, जो issue गुड़ा raise होची, you try to analyze it whether most of those issues are from coastal Odisha or whether most of those are from western Odisha. You will see that most of are from coastal Odisha or Cuttack or Bhubaneswar. ता माने होचे आमे political discourse माने political जो agenda भी setting होची, those topics, those issues are mostly from the developed parts. Is this तुमे आज news channel भी खोली की देखो, केते जन तांको भितर discuss करूछन कि western Odisha रा migrant crisis ऊपर discuss करूछन, very less. Most of the focus will be on Cuttack Bhubaneswar, right? So similarly, socio-economic disparity. ଯେମିତି political disparity ଅଛି, ସେମିତି socio-economic disparity भी ଅଛି. So this is leading to power disparity. How this is leading to power disparity? Because if जदि गोटे एरिया टा बेसी socio-economically developed हबो, तो सेटिकार लोकमानकर डिमांड भी बढी बढी जिवो, politically भी सेमान बेसी एक्टिव ହେଇଯିवे. जो एरिया रे टिके less developed हबो, सेमानकर कोन इधर सेमान डिमांड सेई लेवल ले हबो नै, और तांको डिमांड कले भी तांको डिमांड नै सुनिए नै. Just for example, think of suppose गोटे जगह रे flooding ही, or even way as simple as that, भाबो कि कोटे जगह रे electricity कटि हिची, भाबो यदि भुवनेश्वर रो को एरिया रे electricity कटि हिची, से electricity department को केतेटा फोन कॉल जीवो, आ भाबो कोटे अन्य को विलेज एरिया रे electricity चली हिची, केते जन लोग electricity department को फोन करी ना प्रेशराइज करे. Are you able to understand socio economic development संगे केमती power disparity is linked? So this is the difference between coastal districts and KBK districts. Sorry, এটা ভুল লিখে দিয়েছি, plus KBK district versus other districts. Okay, okay, না coastal district ঠিক আছে, coastal districts versus KBK districts. Okay, here KBK under রে আমি 8টা জায়গা সেই districts গুলো নউছে. You can also write about those three northern districts also. These two are under one side. Right. So this is the one of the reasons for regional disparity in Odisha. Now come to this part, center of focus. Okay. बर्तमान में देखिए कि politically, economically, as well as socially, which areas are main focus of Odisha government or in general of Odisha people? Only these 3-4 districts: Bhubaneswar, Cuttack, Puri, Ganjam, Eguda, which are already developed. So this capital-centered approach. Okay, by the way, okay, this was not the point. Another point is yes. What is the meaning of capital-centered approach? Means development which is more in the center and less in the periphery. So this center is the Cuttack and Bhubaneswar. एटा भी गोटे बहुत जेनेरिक हमर आर्गुमेंट यू मस्ट हैव हर्ड कि यार ओडिसा रे डेवलपमेंट कहले तो खाली भुवनेश्वर, खाली तो you know this government or that government. Even in other parts of the state, other states, it has also happened. You go to Telangana also, सब स्टेट रो निश्चय देखियो कि to a great extent capital टा more developed है. So that is natural. But the point is, if consciously or unconsciously also, sorry, I mean without even realizing it, if you are providing more fund to the capital area only, so that is what data would a zero sum game use. So there is less money or fund to develop other parts. So this capital centered approach leads to pigeonholing effect. Pigeonholing effect माने कौन? गोटे बहुत narrow view आमर हो जाए कि एटा हला आमर आखि आगे एमते गोटे पाइप लागी जे एठी केवल कटक भुवनेश्वर देखा होची, आ ए साइड रे सब केबीके डिस्ट्रिक्ट मयूरभंज बालेश्वर एमान सब अछने, एगुडा मान को हम देख पारनो, आमे केवल कटक भुवनेश्वर को देखु. So this effect is known as pigeonholing effect, means narrowing of approach or very narrow view. So this is why also कटक ए सब डिस्ट्रिक्ट गुडा को बेसे फंड फ्लो करछि, बेसे डेवलपमेंट होछि, बट पेरिफेरी रे जो माने अछंती districts like Koraput, Malkangiri, these are not getting attention. Similar point, this got a specific point माने गोटे phrase में लिख परियो कि regional marginalization. Regional marginalization कोन? Budgetary allocation भी तांको कम जाउछि ए डिस्ट्रिक्ट गुडा को, specific developmental projects भी number of projects less होची and accordingly opportunities भी less होची means specifically jobs creation भी less होची for these same districts, KVK districts and 3 northern districts. Now this is another important point that you will write कि बहुत जगह रे जिनसा mention भी नहीं, but I thought कि this is a good point you should write कि जो uneven development होची, this is also due to ad hoc nature of developmental policy and piecemeal approach. Now what this means, ad hoc and piecemeal means, by the way, do you know this thing or not? अच्छा आमर देश में बहुत सारा स्कीम्स अच्छी प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना अच्छी जो नरेगा अच्छी बहुत सारा जिनस अच्छी मत कहल गोटे किसी गोटे स्कीम रो ना को जोटा यूएस रे अच्छी और यूके रे गोटे स्कीम गोटे कोडा अच्छी टेल मी द नेम ऑफ द स्कीम एमिति किछि अछि कि बोरिस जॉनसन स्कीम फॉर डेवलपमेंट ऑफ चिल्ड्रन ऑफ ब्रिटेन और जो बाइडेन स्कीम कि भी सेमते किछि स्कीम अछि रिपब्लिकन स्कीम फॉर वार वेटरन्स किछि अछि नाही किछि
No, sir.
what do you think why do you think is this the reason amaro scheme tale amaro de eta developmental scheme अछि tankor nahi taman to ame tanko to develop right
They are already developed country.
so seita pacharchi acha is this related to development or what is this related to I'm just asking
Political related.
yes mane political leadership also in general your political culture and more importantly what is your policy system टा तुमरो केमितिया मीन्स तांकर पॉलिसी कोन कि समाने किछि स्कीम बाहर करंते व्हाट दे हैव कि समान को डिपार्टमेंट अछि और डिफरेंट डिपार्टमेंट अंडर डिफरेंट डिवीजन अछि समान यदि किछि गोटे सेक्टर रे किछि काम करिया को चाहछन ना दे विल सिंपली प्रोवाइड फंड टू दिस डिपार्टमेंट विल स्टार्ट दिस दे डोंट नीड टू स्टार्ट अ स्पेसिफिक स्कीम कि चलो आज कोन करिया हमें स्पेसिफिक लोकन पई स्कीम बाहर कर देले वार वेटरन मन को हमें एबे $500 मासको दबा एंड ता ऊपर समान फोटो फोटो नै कि ताको न्यूज़पेपर रे बाहर करिकी 10टा सोशल मीडिया पोस्ट से सब जिंस किछि हुए नाही बट आम कंट्री रे काहे कि हुए काहे ना हेई पारे कि गोटे सेक्शन ऑफ पीपल को समान थरे गोटे कोन गोटे स्कीम आसीला आ गोटे सेक्शन ऑफ पीपल पई आ गोटे स्कीम आसीला गोटे स्कीम आसीला गोटे एंटायर डिपार्टमेंट ऊपर गोटे स्कीम आसीला तापरे तांकर ओवरलैपिंग आ गोटे डिपार्टमेंट आ गोटे स्कीम नै आनी सो दिस थिंग इज नोन एज एड हॉक एंड पीसमील ओके मींस आमे सिस्टमैटिकली किसी जिंस करूना जेतेला मन इच्छा जहाँ सपोज गवर्नमेंट को किए रेकमेंड कला कि आगो को इलेक्शन आसुची तो आमर वुमेन भोट बैंक आमको दरकार ठीक अच्छे तो गवर्नमेंट सागे सागे गोटे नुआ वुमेन मान स्कीम बाहर कर दो से सेम स्कीम टा 2 वर्ष 3 वर्ष तळु सिमिलर स्कीम गोटे थिवो नाउ सेही स्कीम टा को से ऑफिशियली बंद भी करिवे ऑन पेपर दिस विल एक्जिस्ट बट यार फंडिंग टा बंद हो आप नुआ फंड से सेम पॉइंट पे आ गोटे नुआ फंड नारे चलियो हला आर यू एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड सो इज दिस नॉट एन रीजन द पॉइंट इज कि पीसमिल और एडहॉक अप्रोच रे कोन हबो कि तुम डेवलपमेंटल प्लानिंग टा ठीक वे रे न चलले देयर विल बी लॉट्स ऑफ इरेगुलरिटीज नॉट ओनली देयर विल बी इरेगुलरिटीज देयर ठीक से इंप्लीमेंटेशन होबन इंप्लीमेंटेशन न होले कोन आउटकम बाहरिबे so these are all linked so similarly you see there are many schemes specifically related to development of western odisha but many of them are for example overlapping with each other so there is no there is a lack of efficiency there is also no systemic planning ki actually career kon achi in fact if you see WODC western odisha development council this is considered to be a failure तारा बहुत criticism आसी कि western odisha development council and the problem कोन western odisha development council से गोटे बनै दिले council just try to understand ସେମାନେ कोन करिया चाहतले ସେମାନେ कहले कि ओडिशा गवर्नमेंट कहला कि western odisha is less developed so what will have कि western odisha रो जो political representatives अछंती प्लस सेठिकार जो माने कलेक्टर किछि हाई लेवल ऑफिसर अछंती प्लस आम सेक्रेटरीज अछंती लोकल लोकंकर रिप्रेजेंटेटिव किछि समान को आमे मिसई कोन करिवु आमे गोटे एमते काउंसिल बनेबु से काउंसिल टा प्रपोजल दबो प्रोजेक्ट रो काउंसिल को आमे पैसा डायरेक्ट दे दउ एंड they will execute proposals practically what happened was that because of huge inflow of funds into WODC and there was a lack of overseeing mechanism monitoring किछि हलानी पैसा बहुत आसला आ सान मन इच्छा से डिसीजन नेले कि ए प्रोजेक्ट को आमे करिवु so they were like they were allocating different projects among themselves so this led to huge charge of corruption inefficiency all of these things इनफैक्ट इफ यू सी कंट्रोलर एंड ऑडिटर जनरल बहुत सारा रिपोर्ट रे से एंटायर डब्ल्यूओडीसी तुम गोटे काउंसिल रखिछ कहीं बहुत बार स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को क्रिटिसाइज करछन बट प्रॉब्लम एबे है थरे एटा जो एस्टैब्लिश हिची याको एबे एबोलिश करिया डिफिकल्ट बिकॉज़ एटा इट्स लाइक ए जेनी आउट ऑफ द बॉटल थरे गोटे जेनी आउट ऑफ द बॉटल हिची ताको बॉटल भीतर भर्ती करिया डिफिकल्ट पॉइंट होची कि इफ गवर्नमेंट इज नाउ वेस्टर्न ओडिशा डेवलपमेंट काउंसिल बाय द वे राइट नाउ इट इज नॉट वेरी एक्टिव बट फिर भी फंडिंग होची पॉइंट होची कि एबे इमीडिएटली गवर्नमेंट कहे कि हमें एबोलिश कर दा ना देयर माइट कम ए क्रिटिसिज्म कि देखो वेस्टर्न ओडिशा डेवलपमेंट काउंसिल को बंद कर देले त माने वेस्टर्न ओडिशा डेवलपमेंट गवर्नमेंट चाहू ना this very kind of I personally feel कि this is one of the reasons कि despite so much of criticism there is this mechanism is not being wound up. Similarly if you see बिजू केबीके प्लान बिजू केबीके प्लान तमे काहे कलो केबीके डिस्ट्रिक्ट जो तीनटा पई हेतला ओके कोरापुट बोलांगीर आ तो कोन थर्ड तीनटा डिस्ट्रिक्ट जो इनिशियली जो तीनटा डिस्ट्रिक्ट हमर थिला ता पई बिजू केबीके प्लान हेतला कलाहांडी बोलांगीर एंड कोरापुट ओके तीनटा पई the point was that biju kbk plan under re we wanted to create roads connectivity project नबार थिला बट पॉइंट है कि तुम कनेक्टिविटी प्रोजेक्ट पई ओवरलैपिंग स्कीम ऑलरेडी अछि प्रधानमंत्री ग्राम सड़क योजना अछि ता आगरु तुम जो कौन हेटा कहंदी बिजली सड़क एंड पानी वाला स्कीम ओडिसा रे भी थिला तीनटा तार कंपोनेंट वाला तुम ता ऊपर ओवर एंड अबव व्हाई आर यू डूइंग दिस स्पेसिफिकली फॉर दीस थ्री डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स दैट मींस योर अर्लियर schemes which were being implemented in the same districts they are the failure so first why don't you identify your failure then you implement this thing तो नहीं सेटा नहीं कथा होची कि हमको नुआ गवर्नमेंट आसिला वांट टू शो टू द पीपल कि हम किछु नुआ करछु बाहर कर दे एनीवे सिमिलरली कंधमाल बिजू कंधमाल और गजपति प्लान so because of this ad hoc and piecemeal approach there is no systematic development of western odisha western and southern odisha and this is leading to lack of development in the region okay this is the criticism then let us come to the way forward last तुम लिखियो कि way forward कोन अछि by the way एथरे मु लिखिलिनी in general poverty alleviation और development ପାଇଁ जा way forward से सब जिंस लिख परियो but some specific points was given by this commission which if you remember the justice sk mahanti commission this was set up to examine regional disparity in odisha itself and it gave these following specific recommendations a targeted poverty alleviation program करो कोथरे करो जो poorer south western and northern districts of odisha जो दुईटा कैटेगरी कथा से देथिले targeted poverty alleviation program specifically for that budget allocation should be based on relative deprivation very very important आगरु कोन होतला budget आगरु कोन एबे भी सेटा होछ budget एबे अछि माने they usually don't see कि को region को जाउछ usually it is seen more in terms of sections of people right if you even see the latest budget you will see कि मुख्यमंत्री मेधावी छात्र पुरस्कार योजना तो मेधावी छात्र माने कोन पूरा ओडिसा सारा जोटी मेधावी छात्र अछन बट थिंक अबाउट दिस पॉइंट को डिस्ट्रिक्ट रे सही सेम क्राइटेरिया थाई कि को डिस्ट्रिक्ट रे होछि मोर लाइकली that you will get मेधावी छात्र it is more likely that in more developed districts you will get more of these people correct माने मु कहनी कि देखो वेस्टर्न ओडिसा रे मेधावी छात्र नांदी डोंट मिसअंडरस्टैंड माय पॉइंट इज दैट सोशियो इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट आल्सो करेस्पॉन्ड्स टू एजुकेशनल अटेनमेंट so you are if you are providing this based on sections of people scheme जदि तयारी करछो ताले ता माने ऑलरेडी डेवलप्ड डिस्ट्रिक्ट से बेसी लोक तार फायदा नहीं पारे इवन दो देखिया को ले क्राइटेरिया समस्त पई सेम अछि सो एसके महांती कमिशन कोन कहला से कहले कि बजट एलोकेशन तुम करछो तुम रिलेटिव डेप्रिवेशन देखि करो माने जहार नीड अछि समान को हम बेसी दबा जहार नीड कम अछि ताको हम कम एलोकेशन दबा सो इन दैट सेंस सेही वे रे जदि हम बजट एलोकेशन होतांदा ताले हम देखंदे कि इंस्टेड कि को जगार नीड बेसी माने को जगार ओडिसा रो को पार्ट रे एजुकेशनल डेफिशिएंसी अछि सेठी हमें बेसी पैसा दबा रादर देन सेक्शंस ऑफ पीपल हिसाब रे पैसा दबा ए conceptual difference are you being able to understand budget allocation should be based on relative deprivation so more need means more allocation less need means less allocation okay then the commission also said that in districts with tribal majority जेमति हमर tribal subplan अछि scheduled caste majority पई scheduled caste subplan अछि by the way tsp sccp कोन tsp sccp किछि separate plan हो TSP और SCCP रो पॉइंट हला कि ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्टिंग स्कीम और अदर बेनिफिट्स विषय रे माने स्कीम अंडर रे जहा पैसा फ्लो हुए ସେଇଟା ସେମାନେ ସପୋଜ ସେମାନେ ସବୁ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ ରିଲେଟେଡ ସ୍କିମ୍ ଗୁଡାର ଯାହା ପଇସା ଆସୁଛି ସେମାନେ କଣ କରିବେ ତାକୁ ଏକାଠି ଗୋଟେ ନେଇକି ସେଇ जो ट्राइबल मेजोरिटी डिस्ट्रिक्ट गुड़ारे ताको इम्प्लीमेंट करा ओके फॉर एग्जांपल ए डिस्ट्रिक्ट लाइक मे बी कोरापुट और मालकानगिरी सो सेथिरे कोन होची सपोज हमरो एकलव्य मॉडल रेसिडेंशियल मॉडल स्कूल पे पैसा आछी ओके देन यू आर आल्सो गेटिंग मनी फ्रॉम फॉर एग्जांपल फॉर लेट अस से टू इम्प्लीमेंट ट्राई फूड स्कीम सो व्हाट टीएसपी विल डू दैट ये सब पैसा जो ए हेड रे आसुची ताको मर्ज करी से माने कोन करिवे इंटीग्रेटेड वे रे समान ताको यूज करिवे डेवलपमेंट करिए डिफरेंट स्कीम रे जहां सो एसके महांती कमिशन सेड दैट जेमती हम टीएसपी एससीसी फर्स्ट कथा हले टीएसपी एससीसीपी जेमती जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट रे अछि यू ट्राई टू एक्सपैंड देयर स्कोप सेकंड पॉइंट हला कि जो डिफरेंट सोशल ग्रुप्स अछंती तांको पई भी टारगेटेड प्लानिंग करो सिमिलर टू एसटीएससी एसके महांती कहले व्हाई आर यू लिमिटिंग योरसेल्फ टू एसटीएससी you there should be targeted planning for targeting different social groups also for example women okay for example people with handicaps they should also be given tanka may be targeted planning by the way I see this inherent do you see the inherent contradiction achi ethi se man कहउचंती कि targeted planning करो एपटे कहउचंती कि ना relative deprivation विषय करो so anyway maybe से commission को लागले मते भी अधिया पॉइंट बाहर करियार अछि they kept generating points then regional planning for regional economy or regional development they said ki regional level le hame development ho rather than I forgot to mention rather than centralized planning okay centralized planning no ho so this is also known as which concept polity part re padhai chi devolution devolution of power responsibility and resources or power and responsibility as well as resources regional planning so region by regional level le planning similarly last one specific recommendation they gave ki border area development board तुम्हें create करो to develop backward areas which are located at interstate boundaries okay. here you can give example of कोटिया पंचायत कथा तुम्हें लिख पारियो कोरापुट रे जोटा अछि okay. Andhra Pradesh why it is so underdeveloped one of the main reasons for underdevelopment of border areas is that again there is a lack of first point is lack of coordination second point is कि जो सेंटर थ्रू आमर कैपिटल टू बहुत दूर रही जोटा पेरिफेरी रे हिजो they will face regional marginalization so for them specifically the commission recommended to create a border area development board now these are some region specific schemes you can write about backward regions grant fund brgf by the way this is no more existence सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट कौन कि एटलीस्ट सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट हैज दिस डिसेंसी कि किछि स्कीम को साने बंद कर दियंती सो दे सेड कि 2015 करोड़ एटा बंद हेछि एक्चुअली 14th फाइनेंशियल कमीशन रिकमेंडेशन एटा बंद कर दिया ना this was a central scheme which was used to bridge critical gaps in development in some backward districts actually यहाँ पर instead of doing backward regions grant fund gradually they moved towards aspirational district program so एटा को बंद कर दिया है aspirational districts बट यू कैन मेंशन एक्चुअली एठी मेंशन करया पॉइंट है कि बीआरजीएफ अंडर रे ओडिसा को भी बहुत बेनिफिट मिलची स्पेसिफिकली जो गोडा लेफ्ट विंग एक्सट्रीमिस्ट अफेक्टेड एरियाज ना रेड कॉरिडोर अंडर रे जाउछन से माने आगु बीआरजीएफ अंडर रे बहुत फंडिंग मिलगी बहुत सारा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट भी हिच ओके ना बिजू केबीके योजना वी हैड डिस्कस दिस इज फॉर एक्सेलरेटेड डेवलपमेंट ऑफ कोरापुट बलांगीर एंड कलाहांडी दिस इज स्पेसिफिकली फॉर रोड एंड कनेक्टिविटी प्रोग्राम्स पीडब्ल्यूडी डिपार्टमेंट अंडर रे आछी बेस्ड ऑन सिमिलर टू बिजू केबीके योजना एक्चुअली प्रथम बिजू केबीके योजना हला तापर किछि लोक प्रोटेस्ट कले कंधमाल गजपति रे कि आम पई भी गोटे प्रोग्राम हो सो दे ब्रॉट दिस काइंड ऑफ प्रोग्राम बिजू कंधमाल गजपति प्रोग्राम की व्हिच वाज माने तार पर्पस टे डिफरेंट ला केबीके डिस्ट्रिक्ट रो मेन इशू होतला कनेक्टिविटी इशू हियर देयर इज इंस्टेड ऑफ कनेक्टिविटी अदर इश्यूज लाइक इलेक्ट्रिफिकेशन कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ रोड भी एथरे अछि लाइवलीहुड प्रोग्राम सोशल सिक्योरिटी ये सब जिनस गुड़ा आसी होची बिजू कंधमाल गजपति प्लान अंडर WODC तो we have already discussed so other measures you can write some generic points from poverty and underdevelopment point you can write and finally in conclusion you can write about balanced development which can help achieve Nua Odisha. Here you can also write a one recommendation कि नीति आयोग जेमती सेंटर रे अछि ना, सेंटर रे this replaced which organization?
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission को replace कला. So now we are saying कि नीति आयोग is a more efficient organization. Similarly, you can say कि state level level we should have a similar think tank for instead of our planning department. See, planning department भी रहो state रे, but ता बाद भी हमारे think tank रहो which is in line of नीति आयोग, and this will do what? This will help in a balanced planning. So balanced development which will help, which will reduce, that means this will reduce the regional disparity. This is the point. Any doubts in this?
जो थिंक टैंक लिखले सेटा हम सजेशन दो लास्ट एमिति करा जाय बोली.
हाँ हाँ हाँ, conclusion is a way forward because our को state रे सेमती है ही नहीं ना. So you can write कि just as there is a Niti Aayog which is a apex think tank or policy think tank at the center level, that there should be a similar think tank in the state level which will help in balanced planning. सेटा को देखिए balanced planning that will reduce regional disparity in Odisha. आमर कहया कथा कि आमर एबे जहा प्लानिंग जहा भी होची सो डिपार्टमेंट थ्रू रे होची पुराना बेसिस रे, ओके ट्रेडिशनल बेसिस रे होची. फॉर एग्जांपल दे आर डूइंग ये जो सेक्शंस ऑफ पीपल अप्रोच नउचंदी है ना, एड हॉक अप्रोच नउचंदी. तो आमे कहया कि आमे एमती गोटे थिंक टैंक बनेवा जे कोन करिवो, जो माने सिस्टमैटिकली जो माने प्लानिंग करिवे. फॉर एग्जांपल जेमती एसके महांती कमिशन कहला कि तुमे नीड बेसिस रे बजट एलोकेशन दियो, तो सही सब इम्प्लीमेंटेशन करिया पे से सब रिकमेंडेशन को आमे गोटे स्पेसिफिक थिंक टैंक बनेवा which is in line of Niti Aayog, and this will, therefore it is expected that this will help us to reduce our regional disparity.
ओके.
आउ किछि आउ कोन डाउट अछि आसु.
सर से जो डिस्ट्रेस माइग्रेंट्स रे तो आपण जंती कहले तांको बार्गेनिंग पावर कमे, बट तांको बार्गेनिंग पावर तो अदर स्टेट रे कमेबो, तो एटा रीजनल डिस्पैरिटी इन ओडिसा सहित केमते लिंक हला मोज पले.
तार पॉइंट हला कि इफ यू आर डूइंग डिस्ट्रेस, जो माने भी डिस्ट्रेस माइग्रेशन करछंदी स्पेसिफिकली दे आर मोस्टली फ्रॉम वेस्टर्न एंड सदर्न ओडिशा, so they are going to some other part, whereas think of some other parts of Odisha हला, other parts of Odisha रो जो माने माइग्रेशन करछंदी से माने डिस्ट्रेस माइग्रेशन करना, एटा नॉर्मल काइंड ऑफ माइग्रेशन. They have bargaining power means, so due to bargaining their living condition is better, then the ମାନଙ୍କର income भी माने earning भी better होची, सब जिनस better अछि. So now एमाने घरକୁ भी पैसा पठेले, अधिका पैसा पठेबे. Now these parts will be more developed. एमाने जो जाउछन्ते अन्य जगह रे काम करछन जोते ताका bargaining power नाही, तो that means they are getting less. If they are getting less, they will return, माने ସେମାନେ कम पैसा धरिकी घरକୁ भी रिटर्न करिवे.
यस सर,
तो
यस सर.
ताको एरिया टा perpetually it will remain underdeveloped.
ओके.
तो यार पॉइंट आगु गोटे वे बुझाऊँ. स्पेसिफिकली थिंक ऑफ ए डिस्ट्रिक्ट लाइक बालेश्वर. ओके, बालेश्वर बहुत लोग कौन करती, आई डोंट नो इफ यू नो दिस और नॉट, माने एंटायर विलेज अछि ना, से माने पूरा दे हैव ऑल माइग्रेटेड टू दिल्ली और समथिंग. गोटे गोटे एमतिया विलेज अछि से मानकर सब तांको घर ईच एंड एवरी घरे देखियो जणे रेलवे रे काम करथुवे. ओके, so तार पॉइंट कौन है, बिकॉज दे आर इन ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर, मेनी ऑफ देम आर इन ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर, और अनऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर रहिले भी सानकर बार्गेनिंग पावर रहला बिकॉज साने डिस्ट्रेस माइग्रेशन करना. सो नाउ दे आर अर्निंग मोर, दे आर माने रिमिटेंस तो कहबे नि, रिमिटेंस ता फॉरेन ये रहला, बट साने घर को अधिका पैसा पठाउछन. ओके, तो अधिका पैसा पठेले ताको एरिया डेवलप होला. जो माने वेस्टर्न ओडिसा रे गले से माने बाधे कम पैसा रे राजी हे गले काम करिया, घर को कम पैसा पठेले, तो ସେମାନେ ରିଟର୍ନ ବି ଯେତେବେଳେ କରିକି ଆସିବେ କିଛି ନଥିବ, ବେଶୀ କିଛି ନଥିବ ତାଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ, ତ ସେ ତାଙ୍କ ରିଜନ ଟା କଣ୍ଟିନ୍ୟୁଅସଲି ପୋର, ଇଟ ହାଜ ରିମେନ୍ଡ ପୋର, ଇଟ ଇଜ ନଟ ଡେଭଲପିଂ. दैट इज द आर्गुमेंट. ओके, एनी अदर डाउट और एल्स विल वाइंड अप. Regional disparity, please write some specific point. Justice SK Mahanti Commission, certainly you should write. Okay, otherwise answer will be very generic. I have seen coaching center materials, they are writing such generic answer that chado but write something specific. Okay, ठीक है, then guys we'll wind up. We'll have tomorrow I think you have class, polity class, no? Then next economics class I will update the next schedule. In the next economic class we will finish the development and growth chapter. We will finish. That is the biggest chapter. Okay, ठीक है then. Have a nice day. We will meet again. Okay.